Welcome back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler here with Johnny. Johnny, it's December almost 1st, 2nd, so Merry Christmas.
2nd. Yeah, Merry Christmas. This is the Christmas episode.
This sure is a Christmas episode. Have you been feeling the reason for the season?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, do you want me to tell the people the title of this episode and how we're going to make it a Christmas episode?
Absolutely.
If you're familiar with the 12 days of Christmas, caveat does happen. Those days happen after Christmas, but whatever. 10 Lords of Leaping. This is the history of early platforming games.
You have made a lot of these episodes, and I hate them, because you come up with a theme, and then you're like, how can we shoehorn collecting into this theme? And you went through the entire 12 Days of Christmas song. You're like, oh, the 5 golden rings could be like 5 of the best Sonic games. I'm sure you said something like that to me.
No, we did an episode. It was called 5 Golden Things, and we talked about 5 gold collectibles. Yeah, we did.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a good episode. Just, hey, you want to hear I'm going to give all of our listeners some future episodes. Okay? Future Christmas episodes. You ready? Look, you can't be mad about this because at least these are episodes, like the early history of platforming is something you enjoy, right?
So yeah, the reason you got me on this one is because you're like talking about one of my favorite things. You wanted to make it 10 platformers, and then I'm like, no, how about 10 early platformers? And we talk about like real bullshit. Yeah,
because look, we're a team and we talk and we discuss ideas and then we go back and forth and we go with the best idea. That's how it works, Tyler.
Was it the best idea? I think this episode was a compromise. You're like, well, I have a lot of bullshit coming up down the pipeline, so how about we do an episode that you really enjoy?
Yeah, as a team. We're
like a married couple. We compromise.
Yeah. So no one's exactly happy. But I would like to think that we compromise so you get to be as happy as you can be, and then I get to be as happy as I can be. But the bullshit episodes that I'm going to do, I'm not excited about those either, but I feel like some of those episodes need to happen. But I want to give the people, we're derailed a little bit, I want to give them future episodes. And I just wanted to remind you that you didn't like when I'm like, all right, like, let's keep it winter themed. Let's like 5 Santa games. You didn't want to do those. You hated those so much. So I found a way to at least try to make it something different where we could talk about something else. So this is better than what you had to do before.
Yeah. All right. No more Santa games. Let's go.
Okay. So possible episodes coming up in Christmases in the future. 6 Geese a Laying. 6 games people invested in that laid an egg. Yeah?
I feel like we could have so many more than 6 examples.
We could, but we're going to save it for the 6 best.
All right.
8 Maids a Milking. 8 collectible farming games like your Harvest Moons and Innocent Life type games.
Of course, Innocent Life, the game everyone's collecting these days.
Yep. 9 Ladies Dancing, 9 collectible dance pad or power pad games.
Oh, all right. Hey, you know what? Right. Underappreciated, Dance Dance Revolution Big Box on the PlayStation, not super easy to find nice, because it's really hard to stuff that dance pad back in that box, and so people destroy them, and like the boxes just aren't super common to begin with. Guys, go get your DDR on PlayStation.
Hey, save it for the episode, man. Save it for
in 2 years, they're going to remember this offhand comment I made about Dance Dance Revolution. Be like, oh, this is such a rehash.
Yeah. 12 Drummers Drumming, 12 collectible rhythm games. But that kind of conflicts with 9 Ladies Dancing, so we'll have to make some choices there.
Uh-huh. All right. Are there 12 collectible rhythm games?
I don't know. I'm sure if we go to Japan, there are.
All right. Sure.
All right. Anyways, that's an example of things we could do.
Is Dance Aerobics for Power Pad on NES, is that the first rhythm game?
Maybe. Probably not.
It's probably not. But I hate that it might be a rhythm game.
Definitely could be. Man, I can't wait until you start digging it. Look, you're already interested. Is that next year's?
I mean,
you want to do rhythm?
Sure. I mean, I love rhythm games too. That's another one of my favorite genres.
I know. So, yeah. Look, see, I know that too. So I threw some in here that would tempt you.
All right. Yeah, we can talk about Parappa and whatever came before Parappa. I don't even know what came before Parappa.
Just lots of stuff, but we'll talk about it in the years to come.
I'm on the Wikipedia article for Rhythm Game, and it mentions Dance Aerobics as an early rhythm-based video game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the first thing. Oh, this this is how I know this is my episode. The first thing on this article, it mentions Simon. Yes! I want to talk about like the absolute bullshit that does not count. That is what I'm into.
Okay. Do you want to start with more bullshit that doesn't count? We'll save it. I've got some bullshit that doesn't count. And we'll talk about how Chutes and Ladders is that a platformer.
So we're getting right into the episode with
we'll talk about some other stuff, but like if you want to go back to ancient India, we can talk about snakes and ladders.
Where did this come from? So you brought this up before. You're like, is Snakes and Ladders a platformer?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Why is this the first thing you thought of? I guess because it has ladders and it's like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
And it has like girders.
And it's a game.
I bet. So I don't know the Donkey Kong board game. I know there is a Donkey Kong board game. I bet it is not dissimilar from Snakes and Ladders. And you're like climbing the girders on Donkey Kong. So I'm going to say, sure, Snakes and Ladders is a platformer.
Okay. Anyways, before we get any further into it, anything interesting stories? How's your weeks going? How's your December started?
My December started, Johnny. My dining room table's perpetually full of like incoming video games. Not because I'm getting a lot, just because I like don't put them away in time. But now it's full of my advent calendars, Johnny. I've got the Exit Advent Calendar, which is it's like an escape room in a box type game, but they make an advent calendar, so you get a little puzzle every day. That's super fun.
That sounds fun.
And then I have another advent calendar that I got as a gift. It's it's like an unsolved murder mystery thing where you get a new piece of evidence every day. And they got it for me off Etsy. And it's made with like someone clearly assembled it by hand in little plastic bags for every day with like printout materials. And it is so indie gaming. Like guy made it in his garage. It comes with a fake newspaper, and like the guy clearly didn't have publishing software. He didn't know how to align columns. There's typos and formatting issues all over the place. It is so independent that I love it.
Yeah, no, we actually have 3 advent calendars. We have just a row of advent calendars.
Oh man.
Yeah, we make it a whole thing. So, there's one, the central one, which is like our wooden, like kind of nice one with little doors and stuff. That's the one that houses the candy. We like pass out a piece of candy to everybody. Like, okay, open the door, pass out candy. Whoever, like we rotate, whoever picks first, because I vary the candy that's in the doors. So it's not just all the same candy. So then the whoever second gets to pick, which advent calendar they want to do, the Harry Potter one or the Star Wars one. And we rotate like that. Last year we had the Marvel one.
Oh my God, how many Lego advent calendars are there? I would have figured there was like a 4. Regular one and a Star Wars one.
No, there's Lego City. I don't know if there's a Lego Friends one this year. I'm sure there is. Lego City, maybe there is no Lego City. There's gotta be a Lego
I'm looking.
City.
It says there's a Lego Friends, an Avengers, just a regular Lego.
Yeah, that's City.
Oh, but that's all that they show in stock. I guess all the other ones are sold out.
Yeah, so then it's Harry Potter, Avengers, and what's it called, Star Wars.
It's so funny that the Friends and the Avengers are on sale for 10% off on December 2nd. They're like, please guys, come on, man, we made too many of these and you're already supposed to be opening them. We don't want to be stuck with these. Who's going to buy these in January?
They were on sale, all of them went on sale, but both of those went on even steeper sales before. So they were like 25% off when the other ones were 20% off on like Black Friday. I was paying attention.
The reviews on Lego.com are calling it a disappointing ripoff, and everybody really hates it. And this guy's like, this is the 3rd time I posted my review on Lego.com because they keep removing it. Like
the Star Wars ones have been like pretty mid over the last couple of years. Harry Potter ones have been pretty good. But yeah, we'll see how the Star Wars one goes this year. But they've got fun Christmas sweaters, and I want Star Wars figures and Christmas sweaters. What do you want?
All right. I don't. I
know
need
you
more
don't.
shit. That's why I'm happy. See, I like the escape room stuff because like once the advent calendar's done, you just like throw it away. It's done. Yeah. You had the experience.
That's nice. Well, I don't keep the box. I throw the boxes away and then I just put all that in a bag and label the set number and put it in a box.
And you never look at it again. And that's like your garbage from the Lego Advent Calendar 2023.
Yep. I keep it forever and then put it in boxes and then I put it in spreadsheets. And then when I look at all the figures, I go, which ones am I missing? Star Wars figures are expensive. Sad.
That is our life.
Yep. I just described the collector's dilemma.
Multiple reviews of the Avengers Lego Advent Calendar are complaining that one of the days was a cape for the Doctor Strange minifigure.
Oh.
My nephew opened one day and it was just a cape and he cried.
Oh, but who is this person who's already got to the cape?
Apparently this was people were posting reviews in September. Maybe it came out in September?
It did, yeah.
All right.
August, really, but...
They bought it in September and they just immediately opened it? Like,
yeah.
If you're going to buy a Lego set with like 24 little shitty things, like the Advent Calendar has to be one of the worst values. The only fun in it is that you get a little piece every day. Like when you put it all together, it's like, well, this clearly wasn't worth the $45 I paid for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Also, don't buy it when it's $45. Like, wait for that sale. They always go on sale at least 10, 15%. If you paid $40, like,
whatever, 10, 15%,
please stop that.
I'm just going to get my Advent Calendar.
No, just fucking wait because there's a plethora of them. Just go to Target and buy it.
Just stop consuming stupid stuff you don't need. It's about experiences like little puzzles rather than the stuff. Stuff doesn't matter, Johnny.
Legos are fun.
I have too much stuff. Please get this stuff out. I'm selling 5 things on eBay right now. It doesn't feel like I'm selling enough. I'm selling 5 Warhammer figures that I've had literally just sitting around for 20 years. Johnny, I need to sell more stuff.
Yeah, you got 5 things in the mail over the last week. So that's not even... You're not making a dent. You're going the wrong direction.
I know. But like psychologically it feels like good. I'm letting go of things. But
yeah, I like that it's Warhammer minis too. Something that's like a handful of items that like literally, when I say handful, that fits in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I'm letting go of these things that fit in the back corner of a drawer.
Yeah, I'm not even like letting go. It's not like I'm letting go. It's just like, man, these are taking up like some shelf space. I could fit like probably 10 DVDs in the space that these are just kind of laying on the shelf.
Well, I mean, you just found out what you should be getting rid of next.
DVDs, I mean like PS2, PS3 games. You know what I
mean. Oh, okay. Well, you just said DVDs. That sounded
DVD
crazy.
Case, Johnny, let's talk about platform. I love platformers. It's my favorite genre.
Is it?
It is. My favorite game is probably Super Mario 64. Which is what we're going to be talking about today.
It's a bad choice.
It is. It is so good. I can sit down and play through Super Mario 64 anytime, and that's how I decided. Like, oh yeah, this is probably my favorite game over Ocarina of Time because I don't look at Ocarina of Time, and I'm not like, yeah, let's play Ocarina of Time right now. But every time I see Super Mario 64, I'm like, yeah, we could play that. Just moving around in that game is just so much fun.
I would rather play Galaxy all day long.
I mean, yes, you can. That is also the best game of all time. Why not?
Just saying. Also, I'd rather play Super Mario World than either of those.
I mean, that's also the best game of all time. What do we? Yeah, this is why it's the best genre because, like, the top tier platform series, Super Mario Brothers, like every game in it except for Super Mario Sunshine is like the best game of all time, and Super Mario Brothers 2.
Is this episode a Super Mario retrospective, or what are we doing?
This is a Super Mario retrospective in which we are going to be discussing 10 Lords of Leaping before Super Mario Brothers, Johnny. Ooh. We're going to end the episode on Super Mario Brothers, which we really don't need to do because everyone knows everything collectible about Super Mario Brothers. It's been like the most collectible game for 3 years now, even though like 4 years ago, like fucking who cared about Super Mario Brothers?
I mean, everyone still cared about Super Mario. It's weird because it's like the Nintendo is the most foundational system for collecting.
Okay. So we are going to be discussing more Atari games than Nintendo games today because Atari is the most foundational system.
It's an underrated console where it doesn't get the representation it deserves, even though because Nintendo has such a foothold in the collector's world because it is the most foundational. Oh. Before we get into that though, Tyler, before you start telling me about games, that came out before 1985, I want you to tell me about what you consider a platformer. What are the characteristics of a platformer? Because I don't know if we agree.
A platformer is a state of mind, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Our platformer is a game where you play as a character, I'm going to say, and a large part of the movement involves moving between platforms. And I would say jumping between those platforms is a key component of the game, which is why our first pick is going to be controversial. Jumping on platforms, Johnny. What do you?
I agree with that.
right.
I think it's mostly set up with clearly defined levels, and there are obstacles within that level, enemies, some puzzles, timed and measured jumping. So it's not just like I can jump over a thing. My character can jump. It has to like usually jumping is part of the skill.
Okay.
Like part of the skill of the game.
Sure.
I also think that traversal and navigation to complete the level are necessary. Like, you don't just like, like you have to go somewhere to get the level.
All right, I don't agree with that.
Well,
I think there are some like open world platform games that kind of don't really have a goal.
I know, and this is my point. This is where we start to agree, because let me ask you, is Metroid a platformer?
I think Metroid is a platform adventure game, which is the genre that we should be calling Metroidvania. It should be called platform adventure.
Why not just adventure?
Because when people think adventure, they don't think of platforming. They think of The Secret of Monkey Island.
No, they don't. I don't think of that. I think of Metroid.
That's ridiculous. No one says, what's your favorite, like, when you think of adventure games,
says
no one is like, oh yeah, I think
box.
of Super Metroid.
It says adventure on the box.
Because they really had genres figured out in 1985.
They had genres. They had ideas.
They had no idea what they were doing. That's why games from 1985 are so interesting, because they're like, how do we make a video game? I don't know. Clue Land. You play a guy and he puts his arm out and swings around posts. That was a fucking video game.
That's not a man.
I'm sorry, is Clue Land, is that a female character? Whatever the Clue Land thing is?
I'm just saying it's not a human.
Bubble.
It's not a human.
It's a Clue.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, I don't think that Metroid, and like I'm curious what if other people have this view or not. Also, I will just say, I know I'm a weirdo about how I want my genres defined. I want it to be very concise and kind of limiting. And, I think things can cross genres, but this should be listed as like, I think you just pick the main one first. And to me, if I'm thinking about what Metroid is, I'm just saying it's an adventure game. Can you jump to a platform? Sure. But that's not what it is.
So is that open world Sonic? Well, I don't remember the open world Sonic game, but I want to play it. Is that not a platformer now because it doesn't have individual levels and it's just a big open world?
I'm a little like, once you get to 3D and it becomes open world exploration, I really get like tentative about how to classify them.
They're
like Mario 64, I still think is maintaining like the levelness, even though there's some open world in there. But it's like, it becomes confusing to me exactly how I should classify that. I have to think about it and sit down and like analyze it against other games. And does the platform genre still exist, in 3D worlds? Is it available to be a thing once we get there, or does the advent of 3D kind of destroy platforming as a game?
I feel like there are confusing genres. I think like maybe the walking simulator is a hard genre to classify. Is it an adventure game? Like, what is a walking simulator? It's kind of its own thing. But you make complicated genres that are not complicated. Like rail shooters, if it is a shooting game on rails, it is a rail shooter. Platformers, a 3D platformer, if you jump around in 3D, it's a 3D platformer.
But you said Star Fox is a rail shooter and you're not on a rail.
It is the first game I think of is Star
You're
Fox,
not
followed
on a
by
rail.
Panzer Dragoon.
You're not on a rail. You're not on a rail. You're
And
not
House
on a
of the
rail.
Dead.
You're not on a rail. You're not on a rail.
Oh my goodness. The camera's on it. All right. We're not talking about rail shooters. I think maybe we're not talking about Metroidvania games for the most part here, which should be called platform adventures. But I don't think that platforming is a core feature of Metroidvania. I think you could have a Metroidvania game without platforming, which is why in Japan they call it, what do they call them in Japan? It's a much cooler name than Metroidvania, and probably a little bit cooler than platform adventure. Search action, is that it?
Okay.
Search action game.
Search
that
adventure,
is such a cool
maybe?
fucking name for a genre.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like it better than trying to call it a platformer. That's for sure.
But like you get into this thing where like a lot of games have some element of jumping on things because that is how we move characters around in 2D and 3D space. And so you get to me and you're like, is Mega Man a platformer? And it's like, yes, it is. It's an action platform game because a large part of Mega Man is jumping over stuff with skill and jumping on blocks that are disappearing. And like, yes, you shoot, but you're also platforming.
I agree. I agree that is true, but it also feels to me like Mega Man is just like that's just an element of a different thing like within that game. But I can understand why I'm wrong here. And also that's why I wanted you to classify what you think it is. And I know that I'm on the extreme end of like where classifications lie. So I'm not saying I'm actually correct. I'm just telling you what my perspective is.
All right.
So
I think we need to we got to be careful not to pigeonhole games. So Mega Man is clearly a platformer in that like at least it has elements of platforming, although I would probably call it a platformer. But we don't need to come up with a single genre for every single video game because no one does that with movies.
They should though. That's why my iTunes is a mess.
What? Why? Because you sort movies in iTunes by genre?
No, because like when you're watching on Apple TV, you can it's like you can look at your whole collection or you can look by genre. But what happens is it goes alphabetically. So if someone put a genre before like Star Wars, like you're just like, oh, it's action. So you're just like, I don't think of it as an action movie. I guess it is, but you get these weird classifications that come in. So you'll have movies that are clearly in the same series and they're not in the same genre because they have multiple genres listed, but iTunes is just sorting it by the first one that was put in.
Okay. Stop pigeonholing video games is what we're going to end on here, Johnny, before we move on to collecting the early history of platformers. Is this a good time to move on? Can we agree that anything with an element of platforming is a platformer?
I'm just saying, iTunes, if I can edit the genre of my stupid music, let me edit the genre of my movies. So when it's displayed,
fuck uses iTunes?
Who
uses iTunes? What are you doing? Let alone to watch movies.
Because I pay for my movies, Tyler. That's why.
Get them on Amazon. Where's iTunes come into this?
Because
they're $4 on Amazon.
No, buddy. It's like you can just get movies anywhere and then play it through. And my Apple TV UI is much better than the Amazon UI.
But you apparently have to deal with iTunes, and no one wants to deal with iTunes.
No, iTunes is just the feeder. Like I'm on my Apple TV. Like I'm not going back into iTunes because iTunes is a nightmare program that's just so bloated and ridiculous. But if I could edit my movie genres, I would go back to my whole collection and I would edit all my genres to be exactly what I wanted and add genres so my movies were properly classified.
Just kids buy DVDs and Blu-rays
and put it on Plex.
Unlike video games, like they're all worthless, especially the most popular ones. Just like $2 for anything. It's amazing. Yeah,
just get it. Find a good ripping software. Find a good drive that will rip your 4K Blu-rays. Get a NAS server and just put it all on Plex, and your life will be better.
I think Sony killed physical movies for me. Now we're going off on another tangent, but because my PS4 could not play 4K Blu-rays, I stopped buying Blu-rays. And also Criterion, I buy a lot of like Arrow and Criterion releases, and they have basically snubbed 4K, and they're like, nah, 1080p is good enough. And I'm like, yeah, all right, so just fuck physical media then, whatever.
I have old rips of like most of the movies I own, but they're just like bad quality, like, or mid quality and compressed. I'm just like, I want nice big files with like nice high resolution. I'm a bit of like, I'm not a complete resolution snob, but I want better than like what pirated movies from the early 2000s and like up to 2010 looked like.
Sure. All right.
Anyways, all right, we've tangented enough. Let's get to 10 Lords of Leaping, the early history of platformers. Tyler, would you like to start it or what?
Johnny, I want to give a special shout out to the stupid early history of platform games with 1975's Steeplechase, an arcade game where I this is all from memory now. You have 6 horses running horizontally, I believe, and I believe this is a 6-player game. And it has a button where you could jump your horse over gables, I guess. And that is the only thing. Your horse automatically runs. So in some sense, Steeplechase could be considered the first platformer.
Or a rail shooter.
Is it a rail platform? Is it an endless runner? I don't know. I think it's the first game with a jumping mechanic. So there is something to Steeplechase. If you want to get like an arcade flyer for it, I believe those are pretty available. Because I certainly have my Steeplechase arcade flyer, and I would not have paid more than $20 for it. There is also 1978's Frog, a game. What is it? Is this like Frogs and Flies for the Atari? It's just called Frog. It is sometimes incorrectly cited as the first game with a jumping mechanic, but they clearly forgot about 1975 smash hit Steeplechase. Johnny, let's talk about Space Panic.
Oh, Space Panic's a good one.
Space Panic is a
game,
real
right?
video game that people actually know and care about, kind of. And we were just trying to define what a platformer is, and jumping on platforms is a fairly important part of a platform game.
Yep.
In Space Panic, you do not jump.
Oh my God. We're already failing to meet our own criteria.
It is a girders and ladders game, similar to Donkey Kong. So you got your big single screen of girders and ladders between them, and then you dig on the left or right side of you to trap enemies in holes, which would be... It's a mechanic that they stole from A.k.a. Alien, another very influential game that I'm the only one I ever know who talks about it.
Yeah, Dig Dug.
Like Lode Runner. Lode Runner is the game that people actually care about that came from this entire genre. Space Panic kind of got completely trounced by Donkey Kong, which came out immediately after it. It's kind of only interesting as a historic curiosity, I think. And for like being the maybe technically first platform game, but not really.
Well, what's nice is that you can find it on the ColecoVision if you want to buy it, Tyler.
That is nice. And it's so funny because the ColecoVision, their arcade ports, they show the actual arcade cabinet. They're like, yeah, you're bringing the arcade game home. And I wasn't alive, but like how many people were like, yeah, I want to bring Space Panic home. Because ColecoVision came out in what, 1982? So like there were already way cooler games than Space Panic in arcades. So it's really funny that it got this port to the ColecoVision. But it's also kind of the only port it got. So either you're not buying the arcade cabinet, because let's be real, no one's buying Space Panic. If you're gonna buy a historic arcade game, go get Computer Space, because those have been selling for like thousands of dollars recently, which would be the first arcade game. But if you get the ColecoVision arcade port, it's $20 for like the only port. That's not bad for the first platformer.
And it's not like it's hard to find either. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, I guess people did see that box art and they're like, yeah, I want to bring the Space Panic experience home. I think more likely they were like, oh, a game with space in the title and it's 1982. I love that. Give me all the games with space or star in the title.
Absolutely. Let's get them all.
Space Panic, really cool name for a video game. Sounds very Japanese because it is Japanese. But yeah, like Space Panic, that's just a cool name.
That is a cool name.
Johnny, this also got a port on the Casio PV-1000, which we have talked about before.
What?
And who cares? That is just an interesting curiosity. The only reason I bring this up is because I said the only port of Space Panic is to the ColecoVision, and someone is going to be like, but the Casio PV-1000 port, which is a Japanese console that came out after the ColecoVision.
So you're just warding off the actuallys?
Yeah, I'm the actually here. It's Johnny. It's the console that came out before the Casio Loopy. I mean, people are going to remember the Casio PV-1000.
They absolutely, Tyler. How many sealed ones do you have?
How many sealed whats do I have?
Casio Loopies.
How many sealed Casio Loopies? I mean, it's a pretty classic console. So yeah. I don't have any. I also don't have any of the Casio PV-1000 games. And there's over a dozen games that came out for the PV-1000. There are 13 games that came out for the PV-1000.
Oh, 13. Hey, guys, remember that episode we just had for new collectors where we're like, if it doesn't have many games and it's kind of cheap, like, doesn't mean you need to go buy it? This is a good example. Don't Just don't.
Well, you could get the full Casio PV-1000. I bet they're probably rare and expensive, and you're going to be spending like $100 or $200 for each of them. If you
VG Collectaholic, tell us about it. Tell us about your set.
Yeah, yeah. And then you could have like Dig Dug, and you'd be like, no, dude, I paid $200 for this rare copy of Dig Dug. I think it's one of the rarest Dig Dug ports.
I dig it.
Their cartridges are numbered to 15, but cartridges number 8 and 13 were never released. What?
Ooh, fun fact.
Get out of here, Casio PV-1000.
Fun fact. I wonder what those missing games are and if anyone has protos of them.
Johnny, they were rumored to be Galaga and Frontline, which were released on the Casio PV-2000.
They just sandbagged them. They're like, nope, we're moving up a number, so let's save 2 of them. Anyways, what else you got to tell me about Space
There's
Panic?
nothing. No one cares about Space
No
Panic.
one cares about it. All right, let's talk about the game people do care about. Let's talk about Donkey Kong from 1981. Tell me,
Johnny, it's the most important game of all time.
All time?
I don't know.
All time?
Sometimes I think about it, and it's like, yeah, Donkey Kong's probably the most important game of all time. Probably more important than Super Mario Brothers. I don't know. It sure seems like it. Super Mario Brothers is probably the second most important game of all time.
I think it's debatable, but I think Donkey Kong has a claim.
It didn't only popularize the platform genre, it basically invented it. Because you can't jump in Space Panic, so like, whatever. Let's say Space Panic's not really a platformer, and we wasted that whole first entry. So this invented the platform genre, made it popular. Shigeru Miyamoto worked on it. It's the first Mario game, and it has like influence in storytelling in video games, because Pac-Man had like those stupid cutscenes in between levels. But this was maybe the first game to tell a complete story through both the gameplay and the story cutscenes. Because like Mario's climbing the girders to get to the princess, and you see Donkey Kong take her away, and then you like kill him at the end, and you get the princess. And that's very simple, but you know what? In 1981, Pac-Man was not doing that. And it's pretty amazing.
Right. And Pac-Man and Donkey Kong like kind of created and saved what arcades were at the time.
And Donkey Kong saved Nintendo of America, which was a struggling company dealing with like Radar Scope. Like the story of Donkey Kong is that Nintendo could not sell this arcade game. They made Radar Scope. So Shigeru Miyamoto had to come in and create a new game that used the same hardware so they could modify it and sell a game people actually liked. Came up with this crazy game Donkey Kong. I cannot believe, like, in 1981, like, genres and concepts were so crazy that they're just like, how about a game with a giant monkey rolling barrels down girders? That totally makes sense. That's going to be a smash hit. And it was, but it's crazy that that was the idea to save Radar Scope, basically.
And Donkey Kong has flaming barrels and barrels. Why? Because Barrel Full of Monkeys? Is it because of Barrel Full of Monkeys that they decided that Donkey Kong should have barrels?
I never thought about that.
I bet it is.
Donkey Kong, so these radar scopes that were converted into Donkey Kongs, I think these might be like maybe the best video game you could possibly own. And I have no plans on owning one. They're very rare, but like if I sold a bunch of stuff, I bet you can get them for less than $10,000 maybe. But I think it might be the best thing. I don't want an arcade cabinet.
Tyler, I have,
really
I'm sorry. I think you're right, but I have a problem. Okay. So you think about Half-Life, right? Like you think about the wrench, the pipe wrench that he's got. Why is that game a game that takes place so far in the future dealing with pipe wrenches? And then you got a game with a plumber and he's got a hammer. Why didn't they give him a pipe wrench? Was it too hard to animate? Like you couldn't tell?
Because hammers are way cooler. What are you talking? How did you get back on this tangent?
Because I'm thinking, it got in my brain, and I'm just like, man, Mario, he's a plumber, he's got a hammer, okay? Wait, is Mario officially a plumber at that point?
I mean, he's wearing the overalls. I bet he was.
I'm like, I was just curious, like, did he officially become a plumber, like, once Mario Bros. Came out, or on one of these dumb Game & Watch games? I'm curious. Anyways.
I would bet he was a plumber to try to appeal to the everyman. And he's like, yeah, we got an everyman, but he's going to get the princess from the big bad monkey.
Yeah, but I mean, the overall, he could have been a carpenter. And that, like, then if he's got a hammer, that makes sense.
I've asked Shigeru Miyamoto. Someone has asked him this. I don't know, okay. Johnny. The answer is probably an answer he's going to make up on the spot. And the real answer is like, it was 1981. No one ever thought of it. We were just making a game. 6 months later, we were going to put out another game.
Probably. That's why I'm here. The hard-hitting questions.
So, the number floating around, 2,000 radar scope PCBs were converted in Japan from radar scope to Donkey Kong, shipped to America, and installed in red radar scope cabinets. So these first American Donkey Kong cabinets that are both the most important game ever time and saved Nintendo of America because it was a smash hit, have this code number on the PCB, TKG2. And almost every Donkey Kong you'll see has code numbers of TKG3 and TKG4. So if you do find one of these PCBs, you have one of the holy grails of video games, especially if you have the red cabinet that it was originally installed in. And a lot of people, they paint their Donkey Kong cabinets red to be like, oh, it looks like the converted one. This is the cool one. But it's very hard to find an original. There's a bunch of things you can look for to see if it's a repro or an original. We don't have to get into that here.
Yeah, and our arcade cabinets aren't the same as video games. They're so big and they're so costly that they would just repurpose and strip them down all the time. So these things could be mostly lost to history.
Oh, yeah. I say 2,000 were converted. I have no doubt 90% of those are 100% gone, 100% dumped. Because people would put arcade games on route to get quarters for a few years. And then once it stopped making money, you just throw it out. You don't want to store this giant arcade game. It's already paid for itself over 20 times in quarters. What are you going to do storing it in a warehouse for the rest of the time? You got money to make.
Yeah, or they got stripped for parts because, these were just things that happened more often back then.
Oh, yeah, or you took Donkey Kong out, you put the new game in. Yeah. Exactly. And so beyond these TKG2 boards, there is an original Donkey Kong board, and they're so rare in America and so rare in general. I don't think they came out in America. If they did come out in America, they definitely are they were not a normal thing because I never see them. But if you do find a Donkey Kong board that doesn't have a number after the TKG codes, that's a first print Donkey Kong, Johnny.
Oh, shit.
And I've seen one guy who has one in America, and I found my copy in Japan, and it's pretty hard to find those PCBs. And it's kind of the real first appearance of Mario.
Real first print, first Mario.
And it's an arcade PCB, so you're going to spend $400 on it, but I think it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. All right, well, let's talk about the other versions of this game, because hard to collect this. So let's talk about the stuff people are actually going to buy when they're buying Donkey Kong.
Oh, the first home version of Donkey Kong, Johnny.
Yeah.
In June 1982, before anything else.
For the Atari?
The first time that Mario came home.
For the Atari?
And people were enjoying one of the greatest arcade games ever made right from the comfort of their couch.
For the Atari?
The Game & Watch. Donkey Kong. In Japan, also came out in America. But, Johnny, the Game & Watch is the first time people got Mario at home. It was before. So all these other ports, forget them. They don't matter. If you want to say, oh, my Atari Coleco version is the first version of Donkey Kong. No, it's not.
Get a Game & Watch.
This Game & Watch sold so well. I think they sold over 10 million of them, or over 9 million of them. So
that's a lot. Damn.
I remember on Yahoo Auctions, there was this unknown internal variant of the Game & Watch that sold for $9,000. And it was a commemorative, I think it was commemorating 10 million Donkey Kong Game & Watches sold. And it was gifted to the people who made Donkey Kong. It's a very limited internal Nintendo item. And I thought no one was going to see it. I bid pretty high on this, and then it ended up selling for $9,000. I had no shot getting it. But so these Donkey Kong Game & Watches are very common. I think the interesting thing to look for is early serial numbers. And I'm looking for one of these myself, but whatever. There are so many of them that the low serial numbers are hard to find. And one of the hallmarks of low serial numbers is above the button on both the box and the console itself, there's a little box that says start. And on the earliest Game & Watches, that start button, or that little print that says start, is missing. So that's something to look for if you want a low serial number Donkey Kong Game & Watch.
Get those low serials. Also, the more we talk about the early history of Nintendo, you will see that if you've been ignoring Game & Watch, maybe you shouldn't.
It's not even a video game.
I'm just saying, if you care about the history of it, of Nintendo, of games, right? Are we saying, are we going back to this Game & Watch aren't video games?
I mean, they're games. Care? I mean, I think they have a bunch of technical importance in like this is the first home port of Donkey Kong, and we're going to talk about the Mario Bros. Game & Watch. Like there's something, but in general, like I don't think like the vast majority of Game & Watches are all that interesting.
I just think I'm saying only from a historical. I'm like don't play them; they're fucking terrible. But I think they do some interesting things within the history of Nintendo. So
sure, and I think Game & Watch itself is like an interesting thing because that's all like pre-Famicom. What's the first Game & Watch? It's just like a cool Gunpei Yokoi toy, like in a world of 1970s and 80s cool Gunpei Yokoi toys.
All right. Well, where else are we gonna find? Not a video game. Where's the first video game then, Tyler?
All right. The Atari and Coleco versions, July 1982. I kind of looked into this at one point. I don't remember. There used to be semi-consensus that one came out before the other. I think they were released basically identically, or the Coleco version might have come out like a week or two earlier. I had some first party like trade magazine source that the Coleco version came out very slightly earlier than the Atari version. But it doesn't matter. Who cares? We're talking about like this is now the second home version of Donkey Kong technically, and it's the freaking ColecoVision and Atari versions, which who cares?
But it's the first video game port.
Sure, first video game port, whatever. So the weird thing is ColecoVision.
Don't be too restrictive about your things, though. We should like open up our genres and stuff. But here we should be very restrictive.
All right. Is the ColecoVision Pac-In game. So literally everyone with a ColecoVision, which sold, like probably a couple million units.
Pac-In suck.
Had a thing. So you can get a boxed ColecoVision for like $300 if you really want a complete and boxed ColecoVision. Of course I have one, Johnny, because that's Donkey Kong. The interesting thing is that Coleco had the rights to distribute. So Nintendo and Atari both wanted the rights to distribute Donkey Kong. I believe those were the two companies going for it. And Nintendo gave the rights to Coleco, who also made a version for the Atari 2600, which was famously garbage. Made by famed Atari developer Gary Kitchen, who did not have access to a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet, which is very funny.
Is that Gary Kitchen from Super Battle Tank?
That is Gary Kitchen from Super Battle Tank, the most famous game he made, obviously. But you know what? If you made Super Battle Tank and you put your name in front of it and everyone knows your name because of it, isn't that kind of cool? Like,
yeah,
that's what Activision fought for, is the concept of putting people's names on games. And you know what? A lot of people know Gary Kitchen's name because Gary Kitchen's Super Battle Tank stands out in the NES library because it has his freaking name on it. So,
yep, Gary 2R Kitchen. Yeah. Gary 2R Kitchen. His name has 2 R's, and I always look at that. I'm like, is that a misspelling? No, it's Gary. It's Gary.
So I forgot the exact story, but I think they didn't give him enough time or resources to like make any kind of decent version of Donkey Kong, which it is possible because modern homebrewers have made decent versions of Donkey Kong. But Gary Kitchen's version of Donkey Kong, it has 2 out of the 4 levels, and it's just complete junk. And the whole idea, like the story is that like Coleco wanted the Atari version to look like shit, so the Coleco version looks awesome. And you look at the Coleco version, and the ColecoVision version looks awesome. It looks really good. And that's kind of what the ColecoVision is known for, is having really good arcade ports.
That's why they put the art on the box.
Yeah, they put the actual arcade game on the box.
Yeah.
So the Atari version is like $40 complete in box. Who cares? $2,000 for like these graded sealed ones. So it's like $100 if you want just a sealed Atari version, and then some of the graded ones sell for like $2,000. I don't know.
Which is the crazy. Don't do that.
Yeah. The ColecoVision version has 3 out of the 4 levels, by the way, which is something that carries on throughout all of these home ports. They're not even the complete game, Johnny. There's an Intellivision version, let's say $30. No one wants the Intellivision version. Super common sealed as well. Intellivision version only has 2 out of the 4 levels. And so we get to the NES version. What are we talking about? 1985 now, when it comes out in America, at least. Maybe 1986. I don't have this written down. I think because it's a gloss sticker game. It's not a match sticker game. We're talking probably 1986, which will be 5 years after Donkey Kong. And the Famicom has been out in Japan for 2 or 3 years at this point. And Donkey Kong on the NES only has 3 out of the 4 levels. What? I hate Donkey Kong on the NES because it's Nintendo's own port of the game on their own console, and they didn't even include all the levels. Get out of here. You're telling me you guys fit The Legend of Zelda on a cartridge and you couldn't fit 4 screens of Donkey Kong? I don't care how early on it was developed. That's ridiculous. How many Excitebike levels are there? There are so many Excitebike levels. Excitebike has a level editor. Kung Fu has 5 levels. You couldn't make Donkey Kong? Guys, come on.
Hey, it got 4 levels on the Game Boy port.
Super Mario Brothers came out at the same time.
How's it on the best version of Donkey Kong, though, Donkey Kong Classic?
It's the same
I noticed you don't mention this in your notes.
Because Donkey Kong Classics is just Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., the same black box ports put onto one cartridge. It doesn't count for the NES set because it's a multi-cart. That's
no.
Strong
it counts,
stance on Collector's Quest.
What are you talking about? It counts for both games.
All right, you have your weird system. We don't need to argue about this now.
I just like taunting you a little bit during the episodes.
I don't know what you were talking about the Game Boy version either, because
the Game Boy port has all 4 levels.
I mean, the Game Boy, the 1994 Donkey Kong, it's a completely different game. That's got like 100 levels.
Yeah, it's got a lot going on.
That game rules. Yeah, if you haven't played Game Boy Donkey Kong, like, probably one of the best handheld games of all time. It's the first game in the Mario and Donkey Kong series. It's not really a Donkey Kong game. It's just a really good puzzle platformer.
Well, it begins with the 4 levels found in the original game. You start there.
So the NES version, weirdly, like, kind of not weirdly rare, because who cared about Donkey Kong by the time 1986 rolled around? Like, games had a much shorter shelf life. Well, no, games have a short shelf life now, but games, obviously, they have a shelf life. No one wants to play, like, a game from 2 years ago, let alone a hit game from 5 years ago. So Donkey Kong on NES was not, like, a super good selling game, even though Donkey Kong Classics kind of was. Maybe that's what killed it, is that Donkey Kong Classics came out too soon after the black box, and everyone's just like, well, why would I buy Donkey Kong? I could just get Donkey Kong Classics. So it's like $250 to $400. It's like, it's not super uncommon, but it's like weirdly uncommon considering how much of a historic Nintendo game it is.
It's no Donkey Kong 3, that's for sure.
It's no Donkey Kong 3, which isn't on Donkey Kong Classic. So people are like, whoa, we got to buy Donkey Kong 3 because that's the one that comes after Donkey Kong Classics. And that's why everyone remembers Donkey Kong 3 as a big part of their childhood.
That was one of the first Nintendo games I had.
Are you serious? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It was, yeah. I played that game a lot. A lot of Donkey Kong 3.
I'm sorry. Just shooting some air up Donkey Kong's butt.
Yep. Get that bug spray right up there.
Donkey Kong 3 is not good. I don't care what people say, calling it underrated. Nope. It's
also
great.
Like, is Stanley really trying to poison Donkey Kong? Like, like, what is happening?
Oh yeah, I guess
he's just going to bio warfare, like just chemical warfare on this monkey ape. It's just, yeah, crazy.
Thinking about games in a literal sense sometimes gets pretty weird, Johnny.
It does. I like to think about them very literally because it just makes you go, what is happening in this world? Anyways,
you know what? Speaking of how games could used to just be anything and didn't have to imitate real life at all, and that's why games used to be awesome. Jump Bug. We are going all the way back. So we were just talking about NES. Forget NES. We're going back to the 1981 arcade games with Jump Bug, which is an arcade platformer where you play as like a Volkswagen Beetle. That is the bug that automatically jumps. So it's just like you're playing a platform that's holding down the A button.
Is this like Bump and Jump at all? Or
it's not Bump and Jump because this is a side-scrolling platformer.
Okay.
And it is kind of accidentally the first side-scrolling platformer before like the genre even existed. So like side-scrolling shooters existed, like Scramble. And then Jump Bug comes along as a platformer, and it's kind of like the first one. And man, no one cares about this game. When is the last time you ever heard anyone bring up Jump Bug?
Never. Is it anything like City Connection?
In the sense that it has jumping cars, I guess, but it's not really that much like City Connection.
Okay.
It's closer to Scramble in that it's like a level that you play through.
Okay. Yeah, I had never heard of this game until you brought it up. So I was like, what is this game?
Like, we're talking 1981. So like Donkey Kong had just invented the genre. And this is a game that has horizontal scrolling and vertical scrolling, and like an ending. It's really ahead of its time, and no one cares or remembers about this game anymore. But like you play it and you're like, oh yeah, so like jumping on these platforms, it's kind of like Mario jumping on mushroom platforms. And then you do the vertical levels and you're like, oh, this is kind of like Doodle Jump. And like Doodle Jump's a game from the mid 2000s. And it was like, this game predated it by 30 years. I think it's a really cool game.
It is kind of cool. Just be careful when you search for this game to be like put Bug Jump in arcade, or you're just going to get a bunch of horrible images of bugs that jump, and that yuck. No, thank you.
So a reason that people might not fondly remember this, Johnny, is that there were only home ports to the Arcadia 2001 and in 1996 to the PC 98 in Japan.
Oh, it's the one from the PC 98 from 1996? That's when I got mine.
I found that port while searching this game. There's one for sale for $900. Why is there a 15-year-old arcade game ported to a mid-90s computer? I have no idea. Like, completely random port. Then the other port is the Arcadia 2001, like one of the most obscure American consoles ever made from the second generation of video games. The weird part about this is that, for whatever reason, Arcadia 2001 just has like a million clone consoles and regional variants. So I could not find a version of Jump Bug for the Arcadia 2001, but I did find it for the Leisure Vision, the Canadian Arcadia 2001, and the Telefever, which might be the Greek Arcadia 2001, and the Hanimex, which might be the Austrian Arcadia 2001.
That's very weird. Also, Leisure Vision sounds like some pervy X-ray vision that Leisure Suit Larry gets when he puts on like X-ray glasses.
I'm pretty sure Leisure Vision was putting out porn VHSs in the 70s.
Yeah, also that. It does not sound like a console that you would play. Hey, come play my Leisure Vision. Gross.
All right, before we move on, I just want to point out Jump Bug, because Jump Bug's a game no one cares about, Johnny. But all these like weird regional ports for the freaking Leisure Vision, they're like $50 on eBay, like maybe even less. Like no one cares about the Arcadia 2001. But when this comes up, when an American version comes up, it's probably also going to be $50. Maybe the American version goes for $75 because like no one's looking for this. But this is kind of an interesting thing that I like to collect, because Africa on PS3, some like fairly collectible game, like people know what Africa is. It's like what, like $100 maybe. No one's gonna care. Africa will not matter in
Africa is like
years.
$200. Yeah, Africa is actually kind of expensive. I don't understand it, but
okay, sure. But like in 40 years, like no one's gonna remember Africa because it's just Africa. No. And like Jump Bug, no one remembers Jump Bug, but if you look into the history of platform games, it's always going to be the first side-scrolling platformer. And no, the Arcadia 2001 version is not an important game, nor an important version of Jump Bug. Because even Jump Bug is only kind of marginally important as a platformer. It's kind of like a technicality that is the first. But I don't know, it's this rare version of a game that will always have like a place in history. Like Jump Bug has a place in platform game history, and the only version of it is this super weird, obscure version. And if it does come up, you could probably get it for $50. And I don't know, that stuff really appeals to me. And I'm not setting up a save search for Jump Bug, guys. You guys can have that one for free. You can buy it for me, and I'll be happy that you bought it.
That's nice of them.
All right. John, do you want to, you can move on to like the most important platformer ever.
I mean, only if you want to.
Okay.
I'm glad you want to. It's Pitfall. Let's talk about Pitfall. We love Pitfall over here, but this is Pitfall 1. And this is from 1982. Have you heard of Pitfall?
No, tell me what it is. I'm only 34 years old, I think, so.
I mean, I'm not sure if Pitfall would fall into is a platformer.
That's the craziest thing you've ever said.
There's no platforms.
There's crocodiles.
They're not platforms. They're crocodiles.
They're obstacles.
There's no platforms. Anyways, I'm just not. I have to think about it. I'm not sure. Anyways, it is. Like, what do you say about Pitfall? It's one of the best games ever. One of the most, like, from Activision. It came out in 1982. It is the game. It's the game, right? This and Pitfall 2. There's not too many games that are just this important. But also, weirdly, of all the games that are very important, and then like were also popular, is this the series that fell off the hardest?
No, because you even said, like, we've gone on about how many Pitfall games there are in the 90s and 2000s. They just never stopped making Pitfall games.
I know, but it's not like it doesn't have the impact that like this Pitfall did and Pitfall 2, which were just like some of the biggest selling games ever during their time.
I don't think Pitfall fell off. I think every top 10 Atari games list, like when people think of Atari, Pitfall's going to be one of the games that gets filtered out. Like, all right, we think of Adventure, we think of Atari, or we think of Pitfall, and we think of Space Invaders or something.
Yeah. Well, yes, but I mean, after the Atari, what happened to Pitfall? Like, you would have expected. I mean, Pitfall's on the Nintendo, but you would have expected more carryover. Like, they really pushed hard for your other ports, right, to be on the Nintendo. But Pitfall didn't really get there, even though it is your prototypical flip screen platformer from the days when platformers were mostly single screen. This lets you go in any direction, one screen at a time, and you could go underground. Like, what it was doing a lot that things hadn't been done before, and you suddenly, like, this is why I have a problem saying it's a platform, because I think of it as a game where you're adventuring. You're out on an adventure. So, talk me down. Talk me down.
It's the platform game. So, I mean, it's one of these games, like Donkey Kong, Super Mario Brothers, and Pitfall are just like such pillars of the platform genre. It is crazy for me, for you to say it's not a platform game.
I mean,
when like the whole object of the game is like you're jumping on crocodiles, you're jumping over logs, and you're jumping and swinging over holes.
But you're on an adventure.
All right, I can't.
Yes.
Like, is it a Metroidvania? Is Pitfall a Metroidvania then? Because it's a open world and you have to find items.
Yeah, but it doesn't involve that much backtracking.
You could walk backwards.
You can.
I mean, technically, it does involve backtracking, because the ideal path through the game would involve going backwards on certain screens.
I know, but what I'm saying is it's not a function of the gameplay, and to extend the game is backtracking. And it doesn't have power-ups.
For anyone who hasn't played Pitfall, because I think we probably have a good portion of our audience who doesn't even know what Pitfall is. Pitfall is a string of, I think, 255 screens. They're largely pretty much the same. There's like maybe 4 or 5 different variants.
4. I was going to say 4. Maybe 5. Maybe 5.
But when you go from left to right on a screen, you advance by 1 screen. But then there's ladders that lead underground, and if you're moving underground, you advance 3 screens at a time. So you're sort of traveling through the world faster if you're going underground, and that makes it sort of this non-linear adventure game, which Johnny's talking about. Yeah. And there's 20 pieces of gold to find in the game, and basically the goal of the game is to find as many of those pieces of gold as you can in that 20 minutes. And then every time something hits you, your score goes down. And then, because, it's 1982, games were about score back then. But basically, to beat Pitfall, you would have to find all the pieces of gold within the time limit, which is very difficult without a map.
When I was a kid and I played this game, and even like as a teenager and later, I had no idea that the point of the game, you would go find gold. Like, I thought it was just about score. I had no idea you could beat the game by getting all the gold. I did not know that was a thing that I should even be trying for.
And I'm sorry, there's 32 treasures. But yeah, so okay. Actually, I did the same thing as a kid, because I played Pitfall and I thought the goal was to get to the end. So yeah. I just went underground and I started jumping over scorpions, which is that's the obstacle underground. And I got through the 255 screens, and it wraps back around to the first screen. And I'm like, and this took me a while. It's not like the easiest thing in the world for a 12-year-old to jump over 80 scorpions in a row. And so I did it, and it just looped around. And I'm like, I thought the game was going to end. I thought I was going to get a credit screen, like a 1982 game would have a credit screen. But no, I think nothing happens. Unless you get all 32 treasures, I think the game stops then. It just gives you a score. Anyway, this game is awesome. This is so far ahead of its time for what anyone else was doing. I think the reason well, one, Mario ate its lunch because it kind of took over the genre, and Pitfall has persisted. There's many Pitfall games, but Pitfall Harry was just never a super cool character. Probably because this game was made by David Crane, who is very much like a hardware engineering guy, not a guy making a cute plumber in overalls, which was Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how big and how important this game was, and then how Mario just like dispatched it rather quickly. You know, it was just it took all of Pitfall's money, and then like just, you know, Pitfall is a panhandler now in the street, and Mario is king of games.
Yeah, and I don't think about this a lot, but like Mario's character design came out before Pitfall, came out before Pitfall Harry. So like the magic that Shigeru Miyamoto worked at, and like his team and whoever was actually designing the Mario character sprite, they just made a much more lovable little character on graph paper than an Indiana Jones ripoff, which is definitely what Pitfall Harry is.
Yeah, I mean, but this is also during the time of Indiana Jones too, which is, man, what a good time to be alive.
Sure, but I mean, I think that maybe makes it more dated because like there's no like, oh, Mario is just it's a stereotypical plumber guy who goes and fights monkeys. Whereas you look at Pitfall Harry, it's like, okay, so like Indiana Jones, the character I actually care about, because I don't really care about Pitfall Harry. I don't know.
Maybe
Pitfall Harry's not as lovable. There's two variants of Pitfall that matter, Johnny. There's a dark green box and a light green box. The re-release of Pitfall has a lighter green box and comes with a blue cartridge rather than the normal green cartridge. The light green box is actually rarer. Not that this matters, but if you want an earlier print of the game, just get the dark green box. It's like $40 to $60. That's what I didn't look it up. Your price. What a deal for like one of the most important platform games ever made. Go own a copy of Pitfall. It is so absurdly common. It sold hundreds of thousands, if not millions of copies. Go get a Pitfall.
Yeah, I put 40 to 60, and that's like where you can just buy it all day. But if you're sitting around looking for a deal, you're probably finding better than that too.
Okay. And yeah, this was ported to a million computers, Atari 8-bit, Commodore, MSI. Who cares about any of that? Atari 5200, freaking Intellivision. Forget, you want the Atari 2600 version. That's the real version of Pitfall. Everybody knows that's the real version of Pitfall.
What about the 5200 version?
No one cares about the Atari 5200.
I care.
It's just not a thing. It just... That version came out in 1984, Johnny. No one cares. Pitfall is done. We had Super Mario Brothers was on the horizon. Pitfall 2 was out.
It's true. Pitfall 2 does diminish that quite a great deal because Pitfall 2 is literally the best. It's the best.
You said Pitfall is one of the best games ever made. I'm going to dispute that. I think there's
no of that era, like of being like it's one of the best games of that era. Like that when you were thinking about Atari, when I think about being a kid and what video games were, Pitfall was a top tier game. It only got replaced for me after Pitfall 2 came out. Like I really loved
2 years later.
Yeah, like I really loved Jungle Hunt and Pitfall and Congo Bongo, and then Pitfall 2 came out, and then Pitfall 2 showed me what video games could actually be, and then everything else was trash until the Nintendo.
Sure. I think maybe a selection of words. You can call it like one of the greatest games. I mean, it's definitely one of the most important games. I think Pitfall is fun. I just think like you very much have to be in the mindset of, okay, we're going to explore a string of 255 linear screens, and there's like 6 variations in what those screens actually are.
I mean, but we're not comparing it against the games as a whole. We're just comparing it against games of its time.
All right. There's still good games from the early 80s. Got pole position.
Okay.
Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us about the first appearance of Luigi, one of the most iconic platforming bros?
I think that was Super Mario Brothers in 1985, right? Player 2?
Johnny, that is incorrect.
Oh, hold on. Let me try again. Was it on Mario Brothers for the Atari?
Stop it. Stop trying to make Atari important. Atari is not important.
I'm sorry.
John, just talk about
the Game & Watch.
Bros. One of the most beloved arcade games for some reason.
So it's crazy that Mario Brothers, you think, oh man, The first Mario Brothers and the arcade and everything, it's the Game & Watch. Is it Luigi's first appearance is on a Game & Watch?
Yes.
What is happening?
That is 100% true. So the Game & Watch and arcade games were developed simultaneously by different teams, and the Game & Watch team finished first and released their game well in advance of the arcade game, like months in advance. So the real true first version of Mario Brothers is the Game & Watch, like bar none. Like it's not even like
it's
debatable.
crazy.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, you want the first Luigi, and you're like, fine. I need that Mario Brothers cabinet, I guess, if I want the firstiest first. And then, no, that's not even true. It's the Game & Watch? This is what I was saying, what I was alluding to. Like, every time we dig a little deeper into the Game & Watch, it does something else, and I'm just like, man, screw you, Game & Watch, because I don't like you. But you have some interesting things going on for the history of Nintendo.
Yeah, and would you believe it or not, the first Zelda game was actually the Zelda Game & Watch, Johnny. No, that is 100% not true.
I'm like,
but
please
you
don't say
maybe
that.
believed it for a second.
I'm like, oh my God, please tell me that is not true. I'm like, don't make me go spend that money, because that would have broke me. I would have been like opening up the wallet right now.
You think I would be talking about that all the time? I'd be hyping up the Zelda Game & Watch, like, this stupid NES version. You guys don't have the $800 Game & Watch. You got to get in the fake version of Zelda. I know it's really important. The Game & Watch Zelda. I bet the Game & Watch Zelda sucks, but I've never played it.
But the box looks cool.
It does. Got Triforce and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Johnny, the Mario Bros. Game & Watch, it's like $200 complete in box. It kind of varies, but it is really common, which, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes you look for a Game & Watch, and it's like there's one for sale, and it's a few $100s. And yeah, it's $200, but considering it has historical importance, it's Mario. It's probably not going to lose value if you want to get rid of it at some point. I think it's a cool thing to pick up. I definitely have my Mario Bros. Game & Watch. If you don't have one, I bet you're going to get one now.
Oh, yeah. I already did a safe search for it. Well, after we talked about it, I was like, God, first Luigi. How do I not have the first Luigi?
So the first print, on the back of the box, you'll see advertisements for 5 other Game & Watches, and then the later prints have nothing on the back of the box. I didn't look up their relative rarity. That's just, if you want the first print, because you want the first Luigi, just get the one with
the box is very boring. It's just a maroon box. It's not exciting. There is a weird picture variant version, which we think comes from another country, which has like Mario and Luigi in a truck. Like, you can worry about that one. That one's always priced higher, too. You can worry about that one if you want, but pretty much...
No one cares about regional Game & Watch variants. We don't have a YouTube channel to show them this, so, like, talking about weird art, no one's going to care.
I was just saying, like, just save yourself the trouble and just get a maroon box and don't worry about it.
All right. Johnny, after that historic Game & Watch, we got the arcade version of Mario Brothers, which obviously sold gangbusters. It's
not a port. It's a different version.
Sure. It's like, it kind of stands out in its time of 1983, because I just put a bunch of my favorite 1983 arcade games, or like the iconic 1983 arcade games. Pole Position, like 3D racing game, Dragon's Lair, off in its own universe, Star Wars Wireframe 3D, and then Mario Bros. Is like intentionally a simpler game, pure black background, just a standard platformer in this era where like arcade games were going nuts. And I know there was an intentional reason for this, whether it was simplicity of play for like people who wanted a simpler game, or just like cost cutting. I don't remember which of the two things it was, but like it definitely is noticeably different from arcade games of its era. And for that reason, it's not like a landmark in platform game history. Like we've been like really going through the hits, Donkey Kong and Pitfall, or like these real big games, and like if Mario Bros. Didn't exist, I don't think platformers would be fundamentally different games.
I mean, it's hard to say, because this is really the game where you feature Mario and you establish so much about Mario here.
I mean, sure, it's a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone. It's a tick in a world of talks.
It's weird that it's so weirdly unimportant considering all the things that it has going for it.
Sure. I mean, Luigi, who cares? He didn't even jump higher yet. Whoa, everyone knows that.
The Luigi faithful are just shook by what you just said.
Super Mario Brothers 2 is when this is the first Luigi game that matters, because that's where he gets his jump. Oh, well, no, because Super Mario Brothers, he jumps higher too. right,
Man, little brothers all over the planet just like cringed inside.
I was the Luigi guy, okay? My friends had the NESs. I always had to play as Luigi.
Yeah, my son is Luigi is his favorite character. Does not give a shit about Mario.
Damn,
Loves
I'm so sad
Luigi.
that he missed the year of Luigi.
I know. He just like Luigi is the best. Luigi goes in mansions. He fights ghosts. Luigi is green, his favorite color. He's just like, there's nothing about Mario that'll ever convince him that Mario is cool. Sorry, Mario.
I mean, Luigi does have a sillier face. Mario's a mean old man. Who could love Mario and is happy? All right, Johnny. The first port of the arcade game to the home, not talking about the Game & Watch, is the Famicom small box version, which was a Famicom launch game in 1983. And so, there's like, I don't remember, 9 or 13 small box games that the Famicom launched with. And all of these small box games, we've talked about these before, but they're pretty condition dependent. So if you want to buy a Famicom Mario Brothers, you can find one for $35. Or if like a really nice one comes up, it might go for $250. That's just kind of how some of these more desirable but very common Famicom games go. I don't think investors are buying this stuff up because you probably can't find this sealed at all because it's a freaking Famicom launch game. I don't know. I'd spend $50, $60. Get a decent copy of Mario Brothers. It's
is it a good port?
No. I mean, some people probably say it's okay, but like compared to the arcade, it is not a good port. And so they remade it multiple times. So on Famicom disk systems, there's A.k.a. Mario Bros, I'm going to say, which was an upgraded version of Mario Brothers that was sponsored by a food company because the Japanese love limited edition games with food sponsorships. Especially on the Famicom and Super Famicom. So it has like food branding in the game, but they also updated the graphics and I think physics, don't quote me, to make it more arcade accurate. And then that version of the game was ported again in Germany and Italy as Mario Bros. Classic Series, which is an uncommon-ish late print NES game, because this was in the 90s now. And they remade a more arcade-accurate version of the original Mario Bros. Arcade game that only came out in Europe.
Wow.
Just a weird thing. Like, what is the story behind that? It must be that American tastes had moved on entirely beyond Mario Bros., but there was still an appetite for it in Europe?
Maybe. It's a weird thing. The whole... Mario Bros. Is a weird game. Just like how it fits in history, what consoles it winds up on, where its first appearance is, given the time frame. It's a strange game. I don't understand it really at all.
All right, and now we have a bunch of versions that don't matter. I don't know why we even bothered listing. There's like 7 more ports of Mario Brothers.
Look, because I just listed them, and I'll run through them quickly. Also, like, to me, it's weird, because when I think about Mario Bros., I'm like, oh, so it went from the arcade, which is not true, to the Atari, not true. That's like the headcanon that I had, and I think other people probably have that true. So no, Mario Bros. On the Atari is just it's not even important at all. It's just what was on the Atari. If you want one, just the first print has full box art. That's the thing you should know. There's one that's made in the USA, and there's one that's made in Taiwan. And you said this one has a sticker. Where's the sticker? Because I don't know this.
So the Made in Taiwan is just a sticker over Made in USA. So you probably just want the Made in USA. Although I know some people will be like, well, Made in Taiwan is the same thing with the sticker, so it's actually better because it's the same thing plus an extra sticker.
Plus you got some extras. Cool. I hate it. Anyways, there's a bunch of different versions of this. They do this, like, they're all in a gray box. If you find a red box, that's a PAL version, like it's a maroon box. Avoid that. Okay?
The red box, that's a late print as well. I don't know if there's a PAL version too, but...
Oh, yeah, the ones I saw were PAL. Is there... Okay. There's like a US red box too?
Yeah, all those like maroonish colored boxes of common games, those are all just like late reprints on Atari 20.
Don't just avoid that. There's also one that it's like I guess a mid print, and I'm going to tell you why to avoid this. There's a little yellow star splash on there, which says something about the Atari Advantage and details inside, and it's like right by Mario's fist. Here's why to avoid that. Because it has an extra insert. You're probably thinking, that's cool. It's got extra parts. No, that just means more likely you're going to find it incomplete or just another thing to be damaged. It's not early. It's not the latest. It's just in the middle. Who cares about this version? You don't care about like an insert, like fold out insert that says Atari Advantage on it. Just avoid that one. And if you want one of these games, the range, you're going to be able to find it like $70, $80 all beat up. But I think it's like 100 and 150 is like the comfortable range. And then really nice ones are going to be above that for the Atari 2600. But there's more, Tyler. There's so many more, like the 5200. So
Right.
That's just... You can find that. I'm not going to tell you about Prince. It's 1984, $50 to $75. The 7800. I did not know it came out on the 7800. Slightly different box art, different look. 75 to 150. That came out in 1988, which is wild to think about. Also in 1988, it was released on Atari computers. So all the Atari 8-bit stuff, who cares about that one? Avoid it. It came out on the Commodore 64. Another thing I did not realize, and you can find those all over Europe. There's different language versions. Go look around. $50 to $100 for most of those. 1987. And here's the one I like best, Tyler, that you didn't know about: the PC 8801.
No, 8001.
Is a sorry, what did I call it? The 8801?
You said 8801, different
yeah,
computer.
No, 8000. Yeah, different system, different microcomputer. 8801. This one, Tyler, is loud. What the defining characteristics that we read is it's louder, but it has the icicles, which many home ports did not have.
So it has like loud piercing sound effects.
Yeah.
I have a save search every day where I look through PC 8001 games. It's just a computer that I really like. It's you can think of it as the Commodore VIC-20 of Japan. So it's a very early computer, even before like a lot of the popular gaming computers. Like you think of a Commodore 64 as a really big gaming platform, and the VIC-20 is like, we're just like the absolute trash. Like these games suck. VIC-20 games suck. And that's why I like it so much. Yeah, it's a kind of rare port. I don't even remember if I have it. I do know it probably would sell for $100 or $200 just because it's kind of obscure.
Yep. It was also on the Amstrad and the ZX Spectrum, and that was 1987 for both of those. Who cares? Avoid those. And then we get into the one where people start to care again. People overly care about the Atari 2600 one, but they really kind of overly care about the one on the Nintendo because it's Nintendo. It's like the most foundational collecting system, and that's why so many people throw money on it. This came out in 1986. If you want one, it's about $200. If you want a box copy, always condition is going to range. And then if you want them gloss stickers, $750 to $2,000. This is the market fluctuates on all this stuff very rapidly, so just be careful what you're buying and what you're looking at. Make sure you know exactly what you want and if those stickers matter to you.
I think one of the I should look this up. This is speaking of the things laying an egg. One of like the 2019 Heritage auction sales was a Mario Bros. Sticker seal, and it went for like thousands of dollars. And like 2019 was before things really blew up. I think it was because the whole hype in 2019 was like Super Mario Brothers sticker sealed. And like, people didn't understand sticker seals as well. So they just saw Mario Bros sticker seal complete in box and it sold for like $5,000 or something. It was
Ridiculous.
Good.
The before times.
The before time. Remember before COVID? That was so cool.
I know. Remember when video games were dead and everyone's like, they're dead. It's over. Games have flatlined. And then COVID happened, and then everyone was like, what is happening? And now games are dead again, so that's cool.
I don't think games are completely dead. I still see a lot of expensive games.
I'm just talking about what the hyperbole is, not what I actually think is true.
Okay, yeah. All right, games are dead, yeah. The market's 97% down. Carl Jobs' thumbnail said it, so...
Yep.
Johnny, the sale I'm talking about is a 4.5 box, a graded 5.5 copy of Mario Bros. Sticker sealed that sold in August 2019 for $3,360. Like a pretty trashed copy of the game. People just didn't know what to do. You know what? It was a FOMO time back then. You were just throwing money at anything.
It was a wild time. What a wild time to be a collector. We all have the scars.
All right, Johnny, let's move on. We got, how long is this episode? We're already, we're an hour and a half. All right.
Anyways, we're coasting. We're towards the end.
We're halfway done. It's 10 Lords of Leap, and we're on game 6.
Oh, we're halfway done. But we've talked about all the best ones.
Yeah, we have. All right, Johnny, this is a pretty subjective pick on my end. I don't know. I need a game that represents 1983 to 1984. There's like this... the technology in platforming moved so quickly. Like 1981, 1982, 1983, 1984 are almost all individual years. Like I think maybe you can combine 83 and 84 as being kind of similar, but things move so fast. So in 1983, there was like this revolution on home computer platform games of all these like spelunking themed games, like Miner 2049er, Manic Miner, Jet Set Willy. I can't think of more. So I'm going to put Miner 2049er as maybe the genesis of this home revolution in computer platforming games, Johnny. Mechanically, it is not super important. It is a game where you have girders and ladders. It's very similar to Donkey Kong, except the goal isn't to get to the top. It is to walk over each piece of platform. So as you walk over the platform, it sort of fills in, and the level's filled with like obstacles that you gotta like run around and jump around, and you gotta step. All you gotta do is step on every piece of platform.
Okay.
And that's it. And this game was a smash hit. They were like, oh my... And part of the reason it was a smash hit, Johnny, it had 10 levels. Compared to like garbage like Donkey Kong with its 4 levels. This game was huge!
More than
10
double.
levels!
That's 120% more. Jesus, Tyler.
And I mean, if you were playing the home ports of Donkey Kong, it might be 5 times as many. You might have the Atari version of Donkey Kong, and then you get Miner 2049er. It's got 5 times as many levels.
That's crazy. It's
crazy. Except I think the Atari version of Miner 2049er has 3 levels.
Oh, how many levels does the Tiger Vision have?
The Tiger Vision, I don't know. I bet it doesn't have 10 though.
Oh, what about the Atari 400 version?
Johnny, I don't care. This is one of those games that's on everything. So like it's kind of like on everything and like all these random ports, and also no one really cares. So it's like, I mean, you can get there's like all these like $35 to $75 copies of the game that no one will ever buy.
All right, what about the Atari 5200?
Okay, so the Atari 400 version of the game, the Atari 8-bit version, is the original version of the game, and there's one on eBay sold, and I believe none listed right now, and the sold copy sold for like $35. And then there's some guy who has a case pack of them that's selling them for like $200 sealed. But man, the thing about this game that I like is it kicked off these platform games like Manic Miner and all these games that kind of ripped off, not really ripped off, but they're very similar in being single screen home computer platforming games. Jumpman's another game you could say that was influenced by this. And then Super Mario Bros. Came out, and like this entire genre from 1983 to 1984, all these home computer platform games just don't matter at all, 100%. So you read mid-80s home computer game magazines, and they'll have these quotes or like these lists of like the greatest games of all time or like the best games of the year. And you see Miner 2049er and these similar games coming up as like these super hyped, really beloved platform games. And now you ask someone on the street, they couldn't even tell you what Miner 2049er is.
No.
It just got completely erased. Like, this is, like, there's, like, a destructive influence of Super Mario Bros. Like, not only did it catapult the genre so far forward, but it also, like, erased this entire era of platform games that came right before it.
Well, and it's weird, too, because it was on so many systems, so it had exposure to so many people. It's on the Coleco, it's on, like, the Apple IIc, it's on the Japanese Epoch system. Like, it's literally everywhere, so you would think that more people would hold it in some kind of regard. Nothing. No one knows about this game. I like when you said Miner 2049er, the first thing I thought of was the Game Boy version, which is, I mean, come on, that's incorrect at best.
I mean, I think most people think of some stupid Atari old version, but is that on Game Boy? That's so weird.
Yeah, it's a Game Boy game.
Because I would think like that's. I'm looking it up now to see if it's the same game or if they updated it or something.
It's got the same box art.
Is the original Miner 2049 like, was this like a throwback at this point? I guess it's not a totally different game, but it's definitely its own thing.
Well, and this is the problem with games too, right? So like you get a game that's like kind of a totally different version, but they use the exact same box art everywhere they go.
Yeah. Yeah, games are a nightmare.
Yeah.
Anyway, also, I forgot about this. There's slides that you go down when you walk over them. So Miner 2049er, maybe the closest platform game version of Snakes and Ladders, Johnny.
All right. I love it. Shoots and ladders all over the place. Thanks, Miner 2049er.
All right.
All right. And was he mining in 2049? Like,
what is that? So Bounty Bob is definitely a miner because he has a hard hat on. Yeah. You don't do any mining in the game. You just do a lot of walking. But is it the year 2049? Maybe that's why there's like crazy skeletons and birds trying to kill you, because in 2049, like, shit hit the fan.
Yeah, I don't know. But, you know, also, do you ever notice he's in blue overalls and a red shirt? Just saying.
I mean, we were talking about platform game history here, Johnny.
Yeah. It's like some other guy in a blue overalls and a red shirt came out and just knocked this guy the F out of video games forever.
Johnny, do you want to talk about your favorite game on this list?
I do.
Super Mario Brothers, right?
Nope. I wondered, I have not considered whether I like this game better than Super Mario Brothers. They both are so important to me and like to my childhood and how I feel about games. It's a tough question. We're talking about Pitfall 2 that came out in 1984. Hey, we've talked a lot about Pitfall 2 on this podcast forever.
There's a whole episode of the LJN podcast that's about Pitfall 2, which is also a game I love.
Yeah, like back in the early days of Collector's Quest, when people were like, oh, Johnny doesn't like Atari, he hates Atari. I'd be like, well, I do love Pitfall and Pitfall 2. And then I would, Pitfall 2, it takes everything that Pitfall did, advances it, it gives you a second quest, it gives you a giant world to explore, more enemies, you're saving. And this was always something I thought, but it's not your dog, Tyler. Remember this? We looked this up. It's not your dog you're saving, right?
No, you're saving like your niece, I think, and you're saving a cat that looks like a monkey and a diamond ring. So let me just explain the format of Pitfall 2, unless you wanted to.
No, go ahead.
So Pitfall is a line. It's 256 screens arranged in a line, and I believe Pitfall 2, it might be slightly smaller or it's the same. But it's like 200 screens arranged in a rectangle. So it's the same amount of screens.
Just the orientation is different.
But it's two-dimensional instead of three-dimensional, which obviously makes a world of difference. It's a much deeper game. The only object of the game, you have to find the 3 items in the maze, like your niece, the cat, and the ring. And then, is that it? Or no, you have to bring it back to the beginning of the game, I think.
And you must interact with Quick Claw. You have to get to Quick Claw. That's the cat-looking monkey
Claw's
thing.
the cat. I don't remember. So that's the very end of the game. I don't remember if the game ends there or if you have to bring it back to the beginning.
No, I think it ends there. Like, and I'm unsure, but in my brain, that's what it always tells me. Like, maybe that's just the last thing you have to do. But I'm like, once I get here, I know I'm at the end. And it's cool too because the game starts and it shows you where you need to end because you start directly above the screen, with Quick Claw below you, which is pretty cool. And like, yes, it's the same amount of screens, but the fact that you go down and around, like it's not a straight line. It is backtracking. It is like, if you were going to say something was more Metroidvania, I would tell you this because the way it is designed where you have to traverse the world, not just a line.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you could say it feels like Metroid in that sense, where there's a lot of exploring, and because it's Atari and a lot of the screens are very samey, it is very easy to get lost, even though the map really isn't that big. But I'm sure if you're a kid playing this in 1984, like, your mind is thoroughly blown by how big of a game it feels like just being 2D instead of 1D.
Oh, dude, I got this game, I don't want to say when it came out, but shortly after. It was before I had a Nintendo, before Nintendo was out, and I didn't understand what was happening. I was just like, where am I going? What am I doing? Like, I was just suddenly on this large adventure, and it was incredible. I was like, I didn't know games could do this.
It's kind of amazing because David Crane really advanced platforming genre with Pitfall 1, and then I feel like 1984 has a bunch of these games that are these like big kind of 2D exploration quests. I would put Impossible Mission as another game that really advanced the genre, and then like Jet Set Willy, and these are all kind of in the same vein of like big two-dimensional exploration-focused platformers. David Crane and Shigeru Miyamoto, the real champions of the platforming genre.
Truly.
I love this game. This game, literally, you can beat it in like 8 minutes if you have a map. I would recommend not looking at a map. I think you should play this game. I think you could probably beat it in less than 2 hours, even not knowing what you're doing, as a modern gamer who understands how games work.
Yeah, it's funny because you will see some of the conventions that stayed with gaming throughout after this. You're like, oh, I feel other, like when you're playing another game, you're like, oh, I see how Pitfall 2 influenced these things. I have a fun fact for you. Do you want a fun fact before we? So yeah, you are looking for your niece, Rhonda, and the cowardly mountain lion, Quick Claw. But people think that the characters came out in this game, but do you want to know where they originated?
What? Oh, is it like the Pitfall cartoon?
It is. They were characters in the television series, and they would then appear in Pitfall 2. And if you didn't know, the Pitfall was so damn popular, it got a cartoon.
So I want to give people a reason to play this, because I think most people are going to hear that's an Atari game and be like, oh, fuck this.
Yeah.
Pitfall 2 has unlimited lives, unlimited time, and it gives you checkpoints. So as you're going through the game, there's checkpoints spread throughout the cave. And if you die, it'll just send you back to the checkpoint and you'll lose some score. But you live in 2023, so you don't care about score. So you could literally just explore at leisure and beat the game at your own pace, which is a very novel concept for 1984. It's such a good game. It is so hugely modern compared to what was coming out at the time.
Yeah, it just, even though, like I said, even though it kept that same-ish number of screens, the things that it just changed and what it did, it's crazy what an advance that was in all of gaming.
We love Pitfall 2 on this podcast.
We sure do. Some might say that we gave it a 5.
And so it also has the greatest Easter egg of all time, probably, maybe. So the Atari 400, and you told me the Atari 5200. I'm going to believe you on that, because they're, I think, the same platform, basically. When you beat the game, when you get to Quick Claw at the end of the game, there's a whole second quest, which has a new map and harder platforming. So I believe what was happening is the Atari and Commodore versions were in development at the same time, and the Atari team finished first. And so what they did was they just they made the game twice as big. And so when you beat the game, it sends you to the second half of the game. I believe someone saw what they were doing and they're like, we can't sell a version of the game that's like literally twice as good on Atari as Commodore. They told them to take it out or something.
Yep.
I forget the story.
Unapproved, yeah.
They didn't take it out, but it's not advertised anywhere on the box. So if you bought the Atari 400 version of the game or the Atari 5200 version of the game, it's literally twice as good as all the other versions of the game. It is so cool. To have such a good game that is twice as big on the original platform it was released on.
It's weird that you might feel like buying an Atari 5200 game.
No, get the Atari 400 version because that's the original version. Or, well, no, because so Pitfall 2 on Atari 2600 is the original version, and then the port team that was porting it to Atari 400 finished it first, probably because the architecture was more similar to Atari 2600, whereas probably on Commodore they had to start all over. I bet that's the actual story behind it. Probably.
Also, here's another fun fact. Quick Claw has an eye patch, just so you know.
Okay. Another thing with this Easter egg, I remember people from it was whatever the company, probably Atari support, they would get support phone calls saying, hey, I have the Commodore version of the game. My friend has the Atari version. When we beat the game at his house, he opens up to like this whole nother world. Like, what's going on? How do I unlock that on my Commodore version? And like, they had to tell him like, oh yeah, sorry, you bought the shit version of the game. It's so funny that people got support phone calls about this on this thing that like they were supposed to remove from the game. Anyway,
man, Pitfall
2.
Yeah, what a wild game. Pitfall. People don't understand how wildly popular Pitfall was. Like I said, cartoons. They had merchandising. There was puzzles. There was coloring books. You could get all kinds of crap for Pitfall. If you if you're the Pitfall person, there's a lot of dumb merchandise you can buy.
And there's a lot of dumb games. There's more games than you realize.
Yep, a lot of games that
Johnny,
no one cares about.
Which version should I buy, and how much is it going to cost me?
Well, I like the 5200 version, but you should probably still just buy the Atari 2600 version. And it's like $50 to $100, like in that range. You can find better or worse deals depending on condition and completeness, but you should look at about that money. If you want the 5200 version, it's like $75. If you want the Coleco version, it's like $80. And if you're a weirdo and you want the MSX2 version, you can get that for $150. You don't want that. Don't get that. And they are in these beautiful, just brown boxes. It's a real, for as cool as the game is, the box is a real letdown.
Really brown.
Yeah,
really brown.
It's a lot.
I don't know.
It is like the 70s and 80s crawled, like color palette crawled onto the front of a game and just would not be removed. Yeah, super brown. It is.
And it's got this little tiny picture of Pitfall Harry in the top left, and then the rest is just brown.
Just a bunch of brown.
It feels
so
like
brown.
they ran out of time or something. I don't know what happened.
Like, for as much as they did in that game, they did the exact opposite with that box art. Terrible.
Poor David Crane.
Yeah.
Well, he owned the company. I mean, it couldn't have been rushed. I mean, he would have decided when to put it out. Maybe like Atari was quickly losing relevance, and they had to put out their big game. Because it was the video game crash.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like they had a bunch of artists on hand, probably, that they knew made beautiful art.
Yeah, Atari box art is famously bland. That's a joke, kids. Atari box art is crazy.
It's so good.
Is so good.
Yeah, Atari box art is wild. And it's not always the best art, but it's always wild. And some of it is actually just legitimately really good. So go check out it. There's a good book with Atari box art. Do you have that book?
I sure don't know the name of it. No. Is it just The Art of Atari, I think?
I think so. That's a good book.
I think Buy Atari, the big collector Buy Atari, I think he's a big Atari art collector. I know there's a couple big Atari art collectors who like have all that original stuff. So that's what you really should be investing in, kids. Buy art, not shrink wrap.
It is The Art of Atari, and you can find it on Amazon for like $30. Or you can get a used copy for like 16. Anyways.
Johnny, let me
That's
move
Collector's
on.
Quest talking about prices on everything. Do you want me to tell you about the collector's edition, which comes in a hardcover and has a slipcase?
I don't. That sounds stupid. Why we don't? Coffee table books do not need collector's editions. It just doesn't need to be a thing. It already is
the collector's edition. I own the damn book. I already did the thing.
Who's collecting books? No one's collecting books. Like, they are part of, some people have a book collection. I understand that, but no one is like, oh, the new limited edition book is coming out. I gotta get that.
It's the limited deluxe edition, and it's $250.
Oh my God. I mean, honestly, like, there are like high-end video game art books that sell for like $300, like new. So that really isn't that bad, although it is bad because it's stupid.
Not when you think of like the books we talked about in our gift episode, which are like gigantic and wonderful and $40.
Johnny, Montezuma's Revenge.
Oh no, is this a Pitfall Harry clone?
I needed another representative game of this era, because this era is defined by so many games that like have these little notches that advance the genre forward, but there aren't as many kind of Super Mario Brothers level, like, this is the most important thing ever made. Like, even Pitfall 2, I think it shares some of the glory with the games like Jet Set Willy and impossible mission that are also these much, much deeper games that were coming out in like 1982, 1983. But one of these games from 1984 is Montezuma's Revenge. And you look at Montezuma's Revenge and you tell me, what are the elements of a Metroidvania game, Johnny?
Backtracking and powering up and exploration and some jumping.
Sure. And Montezuma's Revenge has some amount of those elements. No, it is not the first Metroidvania game. No, it's probably not even on like the Wikipedia article for Metroidvania, because there's some Japanese game called Brain something that is usually considered the first Metroidvania game. But it's got backtracking, it's got keys, it's got items. So you think of a game like Adventure on the Atari 2600, but then you add in like the going through mines of like a manic miner and jumping over obstacles, and you get Montezuma's Revenge, some kind of platform adventure game. But we're not counting it as a Metroidvania because it's not cool enough because you don't power up. Let's call it a proto Metroidvania game.
Okay, sure. Let's keep inventing genres.
You got weapons. You have to manage inventory. You got a big open map that you could tackle in any order. It's a cool freaking game, Johnny. And you don't play as Pitfall Harry. You play as Panama Joe, a name.
Joe, definitely not a ripoff. Also, that game you talked about was Brain Breakers, the name of the game you were referencing.
Yes, exactly. I've never played it. I got to play that one day. But
anyways, tell me more about Panama Joe.
Yeah, not Indiana Jones, not Pitfall Harry. We got Panama Joe, the most rip-off sounding character of all time.
It does feel like the 99-cent store version of Indiana Jones.
You can look at a lot of games from 1984, and they're just so much more advanced than what came before. It's just so cool to look at it, and then it's like, all of these games had their lunch eaten by games like Metroid and Super Mario Brothers, and no one remembers them. This game, according to a PC Gamer issue in 1997, sold over 600,000 copies.
600,000?
600,000 copies of Montezuma's Revenge. How many people, even like people like in their 40s and 50s, can you go up to and talk about Montezuma's Revenge with?
No one.
This game,
I mean, they'll think you mean diarrhea from traveling. Yes. And so in that sense, you could talk to a lot of people about Montezuma's Revenge.
This game like completely fell off. And that's all of these games. All these platform computer games from the mid 80s just completely fell off, even though they are very interesting and historically important in their own way. The other interesting thing about Montezuma's Revenge is that it was originally developed by a 16-year-old who brought the unfinished version of the game to a Consumer Electronics show, where Parker Brothers saw it and convinced him to sell them the rights to it. And this was like the early 80s. Like, we're talking like almost the era of selling floppy disks and baggies. Like, I can imagine they walked up to this kid and they're like, yo, kid, you got a game? We'll give you $2,500 for that game.
Man, you'll be lucky if you got $2,500.
That kid was Robert Yeager. And so Parker Brothers bought, finished, and published the game. And on the title screen, the game is credited to Mark Sunshine. And I realized they bought the rights to the game, but they bought his game and then took him out of the credits. That's brutal. I can't believe they did that. Whoever, like, I'm sure Mark Sunshine, whoever he is, finished the game, but like, oh man, you're not even, that's just rude. That is just rude.
It's rough.
Yeah, and I'm sure this kid got $2,000, and then they went on to sell 600,000 copies of his game.
That sucks. Man.
So
rough. This was a game I played, and I remember for whatever reason my friend was playing on a computer. It was one of those brown screen computers, and just not like thinking the game was interesting, but not loving the color palette I had to stare at.
I mean, were you playing it was a computer had like two colors kind of deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also just remember looking at the sprite and being like, is that dude wearing a sombrero? What's happening here? Because I did not like, I didn't know what Montezuma was back then. I'm just like, oh, okay. I just thought it was a monster. I'm like, why is this dude in a sombrero? And then like you see other box art and it doesn't look like that at all. Yeah, the box art compared to the sprite is a little confusing. But whatever. The sprite's a little racist. That's all I'm saying.
It was the 80s and it was developed by a kid. I don't know if the kid made the sprite, but
no. I don't actually think I'm joking, but
the original version of this game, Johnny, was the Atari 400 version. As far as I can tell, there's a dual Commodore/Atari version that came on a disc that is probably the original version of the game. This was another, like all these early computer games, it's ported to everything. You could find a million versions no one cares about. But like, considering how well it sold, like $200-ish to get a copy of Montezuma's Revenge, which seems high considering if I asked people to draw the gameplay of Montezuma's Revenge, like 0 out of 100 people could do that. 1 out of 100, let's be generous.
It's a map shaped like a pyramid. No,
it is a map shaped like a pyramid. So the
South American pyramid.
This is almost an interesting thing about the game too. So it's an open world platformer. Like you kind of have to approach certain screens one at a time. You can't just go to any room, obviously. But the first difficulty level is the left half of the pyramid. The second difficulty level is the right half of the pyramid. And then the third difficulty level is the full pyramid. And I'm not sure if that's just a way to extend the gameplay or they thought that giving players access to the full pyramid, which, you know, it's like a couple dozen rooms, would just blow their minds too much and they wouldn't know what to do. Like, there's too many places I can go. There's too much stuff. I don't know. That's just my theory, that this would blow their minds too much if they had access to the full game off the bat.
I think that must be it.
Oh, that must be it.
That must be it.
Weird thing about Montezuma's Revenge, 1989, it got ported to the Sega Master System. Notable for being one of the box arts on Sega Master System that isn't complete garbage.
Yep. It's also on the Game Boy Color.
Like, why? Like, what? Who remembered this game in 1989 and was like, you know what, we got to bring back Montezuma's Revenge from the Atari 400?
They were probably just looking at their margins on that game. They're like, what'd we pay that kid? $500? And then we finished it for like another $600? Yeah, we just got like, this thing's a cash cow. Let's bring it back.
That's it. Because it's a Parker Brothers game. They're just like, yo, what licenses do we got? Yo, throw that on the Sega Master System. That's definitely what they did. They
sorted by like, you know, cost to cost of revenue. And we're like, this is an earner right here.
And then like there was this 40th anniversary edition that just came out. And I don't know a lot about that. I think that was released digitally on a lot of platforms. There might be a physical version. But I remember that coming out. And like you would think like, yeah, 600,000 copies. Maybe somebody like looked at the numbers and they're like, this is a beloved game. We got to re-release this. Like, who is excited for the 40th anniversary edition of Montezuma's Revenge?
Not me.
Weird.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is a better or worse buy than the collector's edition of the Art of Atari?
I think the original video game that is a cool piece of history, I think is the better buy than a book.
Okay, well, what about this deluxe edition that I'm talking about? What if I told you that the slipcase that it's in is orange and looks like an Atari box, and then when you pull the book out, it looks like an Atari cartridge, even has like a sticker label?
My least favorite book in my book collection is the Nintendo Zelda Encyclopedia that looks like the gold Zelda cart and then has like the ugly dust cover that goes over it that looks like the NES dust cover. Oh, it's so stupid. I hate it.
Well, this is a slipcase, so there's not a dust cover.
Yeah, but it would remind me of that.
This is fancy.
Ugh.
I mean, come on, it's only $200. Like, what are you doing?
It's only $200. You can get a copy of Montezuma's Revenge for that. It's such a good deal.
That's why I compared it. Like, what would you rather? What's the better buy if we're spending our money? Fine, buy a game. What is this, the Collector's Quest podcast where we tell you to buy games?
But it's a collectible book, so I mean, it's also
hard.
pretty collectible.
It is the deluxe edition. You know, I love a deluxe special edition. Anyways, that's Montezuma's Revenge. Let's go on to something that people care even less about, shall we?
That's true. They do care less about this.
And it's weird because it's Pac-Land, and it features a very well-known, some would say beloved character in Pac-Man. Why is this game important? Why is this on your list?
This is almost the direct predecessor to Super Mario Brothers, or at the very least, this is one of the games that Shigeru Miyamoto admits was an influence on Super Mario Brothers. Although he's a liar and says that only the art style influenced him, not the gameplay, which is just like the most bold-faced fucking lie. But Pac-Land is an arcade game. It's a side-scrolling platformer where you play a fast-moving, like he runs pretty fast and jumps Pac-Man. And, you know,
Does Pac-Man
jumping...
run?
What's up?
I said, does Pac-Man run? I hate rendered images of Pac-Man where he has legs.
This is a weird thing too, Johnny, but let me explain the gameplay first. But yeah, it's you know, you're running, there's you find waterfalls and there's like moving logs that go down the waterfalls. You know, very traditional platform game stuff. Like the cliches haven't really been invented yet. But you get like power-ups, you can get different hats that protect you from different enemies. We were all on drugs in the 80s. The games are very strange. We have Pac-Man with legs. What are we doing here? And I believe there's 4 levels in the arcade game, and it's structured similar to Adventure Island almost, where you have a time limit. Because like you have a time limit in Super Mario Brothers, but you don't really think about it. It's just kind of some relic from arcade days, similar to the score. But in Pac-Land, it's very much beat the level before time runs out, which is kind of the same thing that Adventure Island does. And then after you beat the 4 levels, you do the 4 levels again backwards, which is such a gimmick to extend the length of a game that I love it. And Johnny, you don't like Pac-Man with legs? This is the first Pac-Man platformer, which feels like a strange thing to say until you realize like a good chunk of Pac-Man games are platformers and not maze games.
That is weird. You know, I don't like something started happening. Like Pac-Man to me was always just like a ball, right? And then they started like, oh, well, we gotta anthropomorphize him so we can like sell merch and like make cartoons and like put him on lunchboxes and stuff. And they're just like, give him arms and a leg and stuff. And I hate that. Also, they give him like a Bavarian hat in this, like an alpining hat, which is with like a little feather in it. Like, it's very weird. Like, if you can imagine, like an Oktoberfest somewhere where someone's in, like, the green lederhosen, right? And that little hat they have with the feather. That's what Pac-Man's wearing, but it's red. And that's very strange.
I mean, it's a weird game. Art. It's a weird time for games.
Also, like, the box art on, like, the Famicom version is, like, there's, like, fairies on it and stuff, too. And Pac-Man is, like, as big as his house. What a weird game.
Also, you're walking through, like, realistic environments. The first level is like a city. Yeah, Pac-Man just lives in the real world, by the way. And yeah, there's like ghosts that are attacking him and stuff. Like maybe this is like the ghost city and the ghosts are just going to work, but they see a Pac-Man, so they got to attack the Pac-Man.
Yeah, it's weird. It looks like early Flash animation too. It's a crazy art style.
So that is, I will believe Shigeru Miyamoto on this. The fact that you're saying it looks like a Flash animation, it is very colorful. Which is a stark contrast to basically everything we're talking about. Because you look at Pitfall 2, you look at Montezuma's Revenge, you look at Miner 2049er. All these games have black backgrounds. They are all very, man, this looks like an old computer game. And then Pac-Land is an arcade game and is super colorful. It is like, I can understand why Shigeru Miyamoto admits that Super Mario Brothers was influenced by Pac-Land. Even if it was just like the back, like if he decided to make the sky blue instead of black, it's like, oh my god, Shigeru Miyamoto, you're a genius. You actually added some color to this game instead of making it boring and black, like All Night Nip in Super Mario Brothers, which does have a black background. But Johnny, Pac-Land is a game 100% forgotten by time. Like, absolutely. Oh my goodness, no one cares about that. I can't believe there's not an NES port of Pac-Land.
I mean, it's on Famicom, but yeah, I can't believe that it didn't get an NES version as well. That's how little people care about it, though.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it mattered more in Japan because it was ported to the PC 8001, the Famicom, and the PC Engine. But in America, we only got it on TurboGrafx. We got a game no one cares about on a console no one cares about.
I mean, and that TurboGrafx version, if you want a sealed copy, you can get it for less than $90. A sealed TurboGrafx game, this is how much no one cares. A sealed one in good condition, less than $90. That's wild, right?
It's wild. I mean, it's like there are some, like, I don't know how big a case pack of TurboGrafx is, but there are some games like Cosmic Fantasy 2 where just like there were clearly a lot of leftover unsold copies of Cosmic Fantasy 2.
Yeah, well, Pac-Land is in that category.
All right. Johnny, I think this game is super cool. Of all the games that are a direct influence on Super Mario Brothers, like, come on, it's an influence on Super Mario Brothers. It's an interesting historic platform game. Yeah, like, you're not going to buy the arcade version. If you are going to buy a home version, I don't know. I mean, the other ones are so cheap, I'd say just pick up any of them. Famicom, TurboGrafx, PC Engine. But the first one is the PC 8001, and it is kind of uncommon, and I believe there is a group of people like me who appreciate Pac-Land's significance in Japan, because this game could sell for like $150 for a decent complete in box version. For like a PC 8001 game, like those games are basically worthless unless they have something going for them, and people clearly think Pac-Land has something going for it.
They think that.
There's a cassette version and a disc version. The cassette version is probably earlier. I would say go for the cassette version, or just be a normal person and appreciate that Pac-Land exists and just buy Super Mario Brothers and be like, well, that's the real thing.
Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about Super Mario Brothers. Have you ever heard of this game? Came out in 1985.
Have we ever talked about this on the Collector's Quest podcast?
No. I don't know if you've heard of it, but like, let me explain it a little bit to you. So, you're like a little plumber guy, and you run, and you're in a world, and you like obstacles, and you like break bricks, and you jump on top of things, and there's
like Wrecking Crew, like you break bricks.
Just like Wrecking Crew. And there's things that are like, they're Goombas, and then there's turtles, but so
there's like mushrooms and turtles, but you're a plumber?
Yeah.
So like they're clogging the pipes?
Yeah. Yeah, there are big warp pipes in there, and there's a castle and flags, and then there's
castles.
Like people made of mushroom, or they're mushroom people, not exactly sure. And their princess who lives in another castle is their ruler, but she looks human, so I don't understand why she has dominance over this kingdom of mushroom people.
Well, what's the conflict? If there's
this giant dragon, which is also like looks like a dragon, shoots fire from his mouth, but is also a Koopa who has like a big shell. A Koopa is those turtle creatures, and he's got some spikes and stuff, and he's always kidnapping the princess, but I don't know what his aim is. He just is keeping her.
Well, I heard that he wants to marry her from a game that came out 35 years later.
Yeah. There's some stuff that happens after. We're going to ignore all that. I mean, the game really falls off after the first one, and like no one really hears of it again. Very obscure. Very obscure.
Does this plumber eat mushrooms too?
Yeah, he does. Okay. I think this might be drugs.
I think he also eats a flower, and then he, like Goku, he can shoot fireballs now. So it's very anime influenced as well.
Yeah. I think it's just drugs.
Okay.
I think this is all just drugs.
Man, I love the 80s, Johnny.
Just wild.
Just.
Oh, hold on. I forgot to mention there are bullets, sentient bullets that are shot from cannons.
The implications that a bullet shot from a cannon is sentient. It's like, what happens when it explodes? Like, is its lifespan like 2 seconds? Is that like its intended lifespan? What does it think? Does it even have time to realize what its goals are? Because there are also bullet bills that follow you around in like New Super Mario Brothers.
It has arms. Why does it have arms?
Does it like when someone builds it, or is it born? Like, is it sitting in the cannon knowing that its entire life is going to be shot out and it's going to have like 2 seconds to live and see the world? Is like their entire existence anticipating the 2 seconds that they'll get of real life?
Yeah,
like bullet bills have like a sad existence. I guarantee there's a fan fiction about this.
Yeah. That's what I said. That's why they have arms. It's so they can cover their eyes. Hide themselves from the horror of their existence.
Jeez, man, bullet bills are horrible.
Also, some of the turtle creatures can fly because they're also like birds. They've like a bird and a turtle mushed into one thing. That's what they are. So some can fly, but you know what? All of them die in water.
Oh.
throwing that out there.
Are there fish that fly?
There are fish that fly, well, or at least jump. So the fish can leave the water and the fish can be in the water. And you can sometimes go in the water, but only sometimes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, got it.
And there are some squids, but they're called bloopers or bloops. And
this whole game sounds like a blooper.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's also some beetle-like creatures that have like a very hard bullet-shaped, like almost bullet-shaped carapace on their back. So I don't know what you want to do with that. They just show up later though, like kind of unexplained.
You're talking about the guys on the second loop of the game?
No, are they in the second loop? No, they're in the first one, aren't they? Like, aren't they in World 8?
Oh yeah, the beetle guys. Don't the Koopas turn into something? I don't know, Johnny. All right, Johnny. We're talking about Super Mario Brothers. You didn't even mention the piranha plants.
I had one more thing to tell you about. So there's these other guys who are like, kind of like, so the turtle things are called Koopa Troopers, right? And there are these other guys, but they're called Hammer Brothers, but they also have like shells and then like shells on their head, which I'm not sure if it's a hat. I'm not sure if they've like killed one of these creatures and then put their shell on its head. And they wield hammers. And they usually come in tandem, and they're their brothers. So you have to kill a whole family if you want to get past them.
When Mario gets to the end of the level, does he get to a castle that's flying a flag with a peace sign? And then when Mario enters the castle, he takes down the flag. He's like, no, there will be no peace here. I have come to murder.
Yes. Yes. Mario is a reign of death. His is a reign of death and destruction. He cares not for the creatures of this land which he has invaded. You know what? Maybe this is a metaphor for colonialism.
It probably is.
Yeah, anyways, he's there to fuck shit up and then get that woman at the end.
And then it happens all over, Johnny.
Yep.
It's back at 1-1. Johnny, Super Mario Brothers, it came out on the Famicom 1985, shortly before the NES version. If you want a first print Super Mario Brothers, it is the Famicom version that doesn't have a UPC code on the back of the box. People know this exists and they buy them, so it's not super rare. It's just that all the ones that are available for $40, someone already bought them. But you could probably get one if you search between $50 and $200 for a decent one. Everybody knows on the NES, the sticker sealed ones came out first, Johnny. They have a matte sticker, meaning that it didn't have shrink wrap when it came from the factory. It had a little circular sticker about a centimeter big, holding the flap closed. That sticker has a matte finish on the first prints and a gloss sticker on the later prints. Later prints, like 1986. The components of that matte box that aren't paid attention to enough are things that annoy me. So nice. All of the black box games, like the early black box match sticker games that came out in 1985 and probably some amount in 1986, they come with a Rob poster. Like a poster has Rob on it. I forget what it says. What does it say? Something about power.
Are you playing with power?
Now you're playing with power. Something like that. The copyright date on that poster for the match sticker games will be from 1985. And like there are a bunch of games that came out in match stickers. So there's a bunch of those posters, but a lot of those early prints of the games are missing the poster. Just go get the poster. I bought my poster. I bought a poster right for like $60 or something. It's worth the $60. It's a major component. And then the other thing, the earliest print of the Super Mario Brothers manual is a misprint manual. The P.O. box on the back of the manual has 4 digits on the back instead of 3 digits. That's the main way you can identify it. Much rarer than the regular manual. If you look at almost every graded copy of the game, like 9 out of 10 are going to have the later manual, not the misprint manual. So that's topical, Johnny, because I just bought one.
You
for
just
my
did.
Matt Mario.
Yeah. Did we talk about it last episode?
Yeah, I got a Matt Mario, and now I'm slowly upgrading it. And the first thing I upgraded was I found the misprint manual. So,
nice.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, I'll throw out some other facts for you just on some other editions. One, I mean, just a fun fact about this is, we by we, I mean you, go on so much about Japanese being the true first prince, but Super Mario Brothers came out in 1985 on the Famicom and the NES, and they came up pretty close together. Yes, Japan is still first, but it's surprising how close these two were, considering how far apart most other things are. So it's just a little fun fact. But
I bet the first and second prints of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone were on the same day.
Yes.
I mean,
within the first couple days. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not more important. I just like in a world where all the Japanese stuff came out so much sooner for like the Nintendo, these two things are very close.
Yes.
But so aside from these matte and gloss, there's some very other basic releases, which I'm sure you guys have all heard of. There's the hang tab release, which is got a circle seal on it, and you will know it's a hang tab because it has a hang tab punch out on the back. If you're getting one, if you're Tyler, you 100% want to look for the sombrero, but that sombrero, and that's what the little punch out is called, that would hang on the tab. That will cost you money. These go from anywhere to $200 and $350 up to $400. Condition on all these games and all these versions really drives the price. So take these prices with a grain of salt. I saw a bunch of hang tabs that were in bad condition going for sub $150. Okay, so there's that. Circle seals, that's just the round circle seal on the front, but no hang tab. Those are like $150 to $200, and an oval seal, that god awful white oval seal, that the Nintendo seal of quality that came on later print games. Those are like $100 to $150. Yes, there's also a bunch of pack-in versions of this and multi-carts. Who cares about those? Don't worry about those. Those aren't the collectible thing. The end.
Are you telling me that Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt isn't collectible, Johnny?
I'm telling you that it's, if you have one, you should have a box system to put it in, so it's complete.
All right. I agree. Although Joe, our good friend Joe, he really wants a perfect condition Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt cart because they sold like 20 million of them, but like everybody played them. So who has a perfect condition one, Johnny? No one. No one has it. Unless you open up one of the new action sets, and you're probably pretty close.
Yeah. Yep. Anyways, that's it. That's 10 games. We did it, Tyler, and ended on the most popular games of all time.
No, Miner 2049er was the sixth one on our list.
Yes, this one's 10.
All right. Those were 10 Lords of Leapin', except for Space Panic. That's it, John.
10-ish Lords of Leaping. One that should have left but didn't. Anyways, Tyler, let's move on to the second part of the show, and let's do a collector's question.
Where's the Discord?
I don't know. It's an Ask the Podcast because you ask all the time.
I'm Johnny. Ask the Podcast.
Ask the Podcast. This is the segment in which our Patreons get to throw us questions and then we answer them on the show. Woo! And I guess is a good time to plug that. Hey, if you want to be a Patreon, if you want to be on our Discord, you can do that by going to patreon.com/collectorsquest. For $2, you get access to the Discord. For $4, you get access to the bonus content that we do roughly once a month. If you want, if not, just keep listening to the show as you do.
Johnny Chalker asks, what's the most missing component of retro gaming collecting? Some examples would be events, categorization, lack of true sales data that hinder the hobby. Define them and rank them from most detrimental to least.
I thought you were talking about components from the actual games. I'm like, it's the bags. No one ever has the bags.
Yeah, it's
the baggies are missing.
It's always the bag.
It's the lack of it's hard. It's the lack of data, and because we don't have enough good data. You know what? It's probably not the lack of data, because I think collectively we do have a lot of data, but it's the lack of collective resources, I'll say. Because there are no books, no one's put it together, no one is the man on one thing. I mean, they exist. Like, Braveheart exists. He's out there, and he knows so much and everything. Joe is out there. He knows so much and has so much data. But there's not a book we can all just pick up and be like, well, here's the Nintendo Bible that tells me everything I need to know.
Yeah,
here's the Super. That's my answer.
Yeah, I'll agree. It's the lack of organized data. I do think maybe there are separate things to the lack of data in general about, like Super Mario Brothers, like maybe the most important game ever made, and like no one has even cataloged every single variant, like down to like PCBs. And like, yes, you have to be a crazy person to care about PCBs, but the hobby is so small that there isn't a single person that is just like sat there and opened up 500 copies of Super Mario Brothers. That's a crazy person thing to do, but we don't have a single crazy person in this hobby. And yes, I realize that's just an example of something I'm currently doing, but I'm not like doing it to document every version. I'm only trying to find the earliest version that I want. And after that, I'm not going to go open up like 100 more later print versions to document everything. We haven't even documented to completion the most important game ever made. So we will never document everything. So to that sense, yes, we are missing a lot of data, but I think organized data is the most important thing we are missing. And yes, a lot of people have different projects working on different ways of organizing variants. A lot of people are launching different websites. Joe's working on a website. I hope all of them are amazing. The problem, and I'm not dismissing Joe's website before it launches, obviously. But we have these websites like GameBoyDatabase.com is a great resource for Game Boy games, but they're all disparate websites and they're all disparate sources. They're all disparate social media posts. Having that one centralized database would be so good. I would pay anything for a video game catalog, even a specialized video game catalog. Just NES, just black box. Just give me a catalog on the first 2 years of NES. People have looked into black box games so much in the past 4 years. We must have enough information on them to make like a nice catalog with like high resolution pictures and pointing out all the differences and things like that.
You would think so.
It's crazy that people aren't publishing this stuff. I just think the market is just so small. Like the people who actually care about video game variants and like collecting on this level is so small. It's the people listening to this podcast. And then like separately, like there's the sealed investors who also have to really care about variants. But I think most people are just like, I like video games. I'm going to buy a copy of the video game I want, which is a totally valid and reasonable thing to do. Because at the end of the day, they are just video games.
Yeah, I think even if we didn't have absolute complete data, I think if we just had a lot, and there's a lot of data still out there. Like if we just had pretty good books that then people could see and be like, this isn't everything, and then want to expand upon. Like we don't even have that yet. Like we have
exactly.
We do have some books, but like they're all pretty weak, and a lot of them are focused on like reviewing or talking about games in a manner that's not as a collectible. You know, they're like, oh yeah, people collect them. It's like a sidebar, but not as a collectible object. Tyler, I just got this beautiful book, this beautiful Star Wars book. It is so big.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so big, Tyler. It is over 15 inches tall. It's over a foot wide. And do you know why it's so big, Tyler? So you can open it up and you could place your carded Star Wars figure from Kenner on top of the picture of the carded Star Wars figure, and it's the same representative size. It's exactly to scale. And then it's got a line of the figure, pictures of the figure out of its bubble, in all the different angles that you would see the figure. So you know exactly what it's supposed to look like from all sides. And then it's got its weapons and items with it. And those are all to scale. So you could pick the weapon up and put it down exactly on it. And then if it's got a variant, it tells you like what the variant is. Like there's a Lando and he's got painted teeth or not painted teeth. There's a Han with a bigger head and a smaller head, and his hair changes shades a little bit. And it shows all of that, Tyler. It shows all of it in detail. And it doesn't crowd the pages. It's like, oh, this takes about 1.5 pages. It just takes 1.5 pages. It doesn't gunk it up with a bunch of other shit. It's like, we're okay with a little bit of white space here. Turn the page and look at the next figure. So each page is dedicated to one of the figures. And like some pages needed more, so they added a fold out. Like it's got a half page fold out on one of the pages too. And that book was like $200, and I bought it like 2 years ago, and it finally came, and I'm just like, this is for Star Wars figures. Yeah, they sold a ton of those also in the 80s. But what's going on with Nintendo games, which were selling at like not exactly the same time, but man, where are crazy people making these giant books for me?
I mean, there are some crazy people making giant books, but they're focused on people with general interest in the Super Nintendo, not people deeply collecting Super Nintendo stuff.
I know.
Man, it sucks. I mean, he gave us a bunch of other examples like sales data or events. I think our events are fine. I think our sales data is bad, but I think that benefits collectors in a lot of ways, not having a pegged price for some interesting thing they might want. So I'm certainly not saying that's detrimental to the hobby. I think that's great that we don't have sales data for a lot of stuff.
Well, I think if we had better information, then you would get better sales data because people would know how to classify things. Like, really, we just need a Discogs of video games. So if you want to like people are like, oh, there's too many games. It's like, well, how many CDs and records do you think there are? But there's this whole site that like it doesn't get all of them, but it sure does have a lot of them, like most of them, and it's there, and it's like what a great resource, and it's a marketplace. Come on, video games, do better. Like,
Johnny, I hate to tell you, but our hobby is bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Our hobby is bullshit.
Yeah, don't worry. We've got an episode coming up here in 2024 that's going to be like 7 reasons why video game collectors are stupid.
So I talk about things like, guys, go after the Jump Bug on Arcadia 2001. It's going to be $50, and Jump Bug will always matter. It will always have some footnote in platform game history, and that game will always be a little bit cool. And the reality is, like, in 40 years, like, video games just might not matter anymore in the way that they matter now. And that no one's going to care about Jump Bug on the Arcadia 2001. The same way no one cares about it now.
In 40 years, you won't care that you spent $50 on it.
I mean that's true, but you know what I mean. I like the idea of more evergreen video games that kind of matter. Not that Arcadia 2001 Jump Bug matters, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Johnny, do you have any tips for a person who keeps his collection in the same room where they sleep, work, and play? Asks Emilio.
Yes. Yeah, I do. Shelves, my man, shelves. Like, make sure you get your shit off the ground. If it's, I'm not saying it is, you may have a very neat and orderly situation. But yeah, get it on shelves, and you know what? I would condense it refine it to an area. Like, my games live over in this corner. I've got 2 shelves. They're butted together in this corner, and that's where my games live, and that's as big as my collection can be unless I move something out. So, be a curator. Don't put a bunch of garbage in there. Like, really maximize, having the best stuff that you're getting there, and don't just buy everything, because if that's going to be in your room where you sleep, let's say that you bring a partner into that room and you want to engage in some more adult activities, then, don't have it be a mess. Like, and don't have a bunch of garbage around. Just keep it clean. That's my advice.
Yeah, no one wants to play Custer's Revenge in a messy room.
That's right. Is that like weird? What are you referencing?
You said they were going to have some more adult activities like Custer's Revenge.
Are you insinuating that they play Custer's Revenge?
Yeah.
I'm not here to kink shame anyone. Moving on.
Oh, Custer's Revenge certainly has a 2-player mode, Johnny.
Okay, I'm uncomfortable.
I don't know if that's true, but most Atari games do, so why wouldn't it?
I'm uncomfortable. Moving on. Got more? Do you have
I can't find out if Custer's Revenge has a 2-player mode. Probably no one has ever tried to find out. All right. No, John, keep it small. If you have a really limited amount of space and you don't want to seem like a crazy hoarder, come to me. Like, maybe like you want to talk to some crazy hoarders. Like, I'm a crazy hoarder. I know some crazy hoarders. Our quality of life is lower for being crazy hoarders. Just curate EA Sports games, all this like weird rare stuff that you have that you think is like cool because it's kind of uncommon. Just get rid of it. You don't actually care about it. Keep it to your cool Zelda games that you have and your God of War, whatever your stuff that you actually like is.
Yeah, sell all that other bullshit and then buy a really nice expensive one of the things you've been waiting to get. Gonna make your collection so much better.
That's it, Johnny. We're done with the questions.
We did it. All right. So moving on, Tyler, can you tell me what you've bought and what you've played?
Johnny, I got that first print Super Mario Brothers manual, which is a thing.
Nice.
I've been kind of searching for. I'm surprised how quickly I got one after getting my matte sticker Super Mario Brothers. That was really kind of convenient. Oh, okay. Hold on. Hold the phone. We got some good stuff coming up.
Okay.
Johnny, Joe is friend of the show, Joe. He puts out these lists of these rarity guides, and he's working on them for every console based on eBay data. So he's saying like, he's the guy going like, there's 30 copies of Sculptor's Cut on eBay. Why do you guys think this is a rare video game? It's not even in the rarest tier of N64 games. So he recently put out his GameCube list, and like obviously Cubivore is not in the rarest tier of GameCube games. I don't remember what is, but it's completely different than what the market values games at. And one of the rarest, if not the rarest game besides Pokemon Box, is MLS Extra Time 2002. Johnny. So I went, and when he put out that list, I'm like, you know what? I will spend the $8.95 for a GameCube copy of MLS Extra Time 2002, which is a soccer game, if you don't know.
Good pickup.
Great pickup. This is exactly the kind of stupid bullshit I just told people not to buy. But you know what?
But we're stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, this is why we're a problem. This is why we can tell you don't do this.
But no, Johnny, I got something probably in my top 20 once. I haven't looked at that list recently.
Oh. What'd you get?
Raid on Bungling Bay for the Commodore 64.
You finally did it. Hey, guys, it's not a game about Vietnam.
I don't know why this game is as hard to find as it is, considering it is not at all hard to find on the NES. But the original Raid on Bungling Bay, which if you don't know, I know almost nothing about this game except that it was made by Will Wright, and it was basically the inspiration for SimCity. And that's the only reason anyone cares about this game at all. But it only sold, I think the Wikipedia number is 10 to 20,000 copies on Commodore 64. And you would imagine most of those are gone now. So this is an expensive Commodore 64 game, Johnny. And a super nice one came up, I think last year, maybe 2 years ago. And I bid $200 on it, thinking it was like a complete FU bid. Like, who was going to bid $200 on Raid on Bungling Bay? And I got blown away on that. So I put a bigger FU bid on this one and won it. Everyone is excited for Raid on Bungling Bay.
Did you pay less than that, though?
John, I paid $300 for my copy of Raid on Bungling Bay.
Woo!
This was a huge one. This is a really nice copy. But yeah, I really wanted this.
All right. Well, I'm glad you got it. Okay. Did you play anything?
Super Mario Wonder. You know,
okay.
Just playing that a little bit.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I like it. You know what? I like it. It is not blown me away in the same way as New Super Mario Bros. U, which I feel like is the opposite reaction that almost every single person has had to this game. I feel like there is a more methodical exploration element to it. Because you're trying to find like the seeds, like you're trying to get into like the weird wonderland, like where it does like its crazy thing, and then you kind of have to explore everywhere to find the seed. And so like there's almost no element of playing fast and like just trying to blow through a level. And like it's still Super Mario Brothers, like I still love it. It's just like I think I maybe prefer the more traditional format of New Super Mario Bros. U more.
Okay.
Which I will be the only person, I guess, who says that.
I've yet to play it. I've watched my son play, but I have yet to play myself.
I mean, it's Mario. They got rid of the timer. I don't remember if I think you still had a timer. So this might be the first Super Mario Brothers game without a timer. Like just explore however much you want, Johnny.
Good.
Like good. Does it have score? It might still have score though, Johnny. Very important to have score. Still has lives. Very important for a Mario game to have lives. Totally matters. Pitfall 2 in 1984 got rid of the concept of lives, but Super Mario Wonder still has lives.
Still hanging on.
Yep. I'm sure if I lose all my lives, which will like clearly never happen, I'm sure something really bad happens. Like probably deletes my save game and doesn't just let me continue exactly where I was before.
It's come up with my son on, I forget which one, where I have run out of lives.
Oh my goodness.
Like not me, but he has, and I have to like, or he's like, I'm down to my last life, and I have to like go in and like gain him some lives so we can continue playing, because I'm not sure exactly what happens.
I bet if you're like in the middle of a level at like a checkpoint, it makes you restart the single level you're on, and that's the only thing that happens.
Anyways, Tyler, Lives are stupid. Score is stupid. Just let the kids play. It's Mario, for God's sake. Though I'm not opposed to like a skill version of Mario. Like if there was like a skill mode, like I would be okay with that.
So I'm not up to the later levels yet. I've heard that it is more challenging than some people expected, which is nice. That is something I liked about the Wii and Wii U versions, is that they do get kind of challenging. I've also actually been going back to Super Mario Maker 2, Johnny, and like you go on some of those expert levels and like they're just obscene. And so many people have made so many ridiculous levels. Like I'm wondering, is like Super Mario Maker 2 the best Mario game? I don't know. There's some really good level designers.
That's a whole other conversation. That's a can of worms.
All right. I don't know. I've been into like the really hard stuff too, though. I'm kind of
some of those levels are insane. You just watch them and you're like, what? Never mind.
No, you don't say never mind. You bash your head at it for a half hour, and because look, if you have to bash your head at a Mario level for 45 minutes, the person who made that probably spent like 20 hours making that level. So the fact, like probably more, maybe more, depending on like how super complex it is. I don't know. There's something about these people who make these Mario Maker levels, and like you look at the play counts, and like, you know, like 200 people have played the level. And it's like they spent so much time intricately making like this crazy level. Like I should spend the half hour to figure out all the work they put into this level. I just feel that way about Mario Maker stuff.
That's fair.
All right, what have you been up to?
Well, I'll tell you what I bought. So I bought some manuals. I don't know if I said this in the last one, but they came. So got some Super Nintendo manuals. We talked a little bit about Chavez 2 in the last episode. And I got Chavez 1, the manual. I was missing it, and it was always like $100. And someone listed it finally for like $30. And I was like, finally, my time has arrived. My Chavez is now complete. My Chavez 2 was already complete, which is a hard enough feat. But got that. I got like manual for Dragon and the manual for Dream TV, and harder than it seems to find, Hammerlock Wrestling for the Super Nintendo. That manual is like a little tough. Anyways, I got that. That's what I got, Tyler. And
if people cared about the Super Nintendo set like they cared about the NES set, where you see games like Pro Sport Hockey is always a game at the end of people's NES set, but like Hammerlock Wrestling is definitely one of those end of the SNES sets because I couldn't find one cheap enough, because it is kind of a pretty uncommon game.
Yeah, it's like I was like, got the manual for $10, felt really good about it. I was like, finally did it. Here's the game. I'm going to tell you a game I bought before it's arrived, but it's too funny not to mention. So I bought Babar. I don't know. And the reason, again, friend of the show started doing this Game Boy, and he mentioned that Babar is rare, and it is true. It's like a Canadian only. It doesn't show up very often. It's a game I've bid on and lost, put offers on, and not been successful. And I was already offering on this stupid copy, as it was already on my list. And then he's like, "Hey guys, why aren't you buying Babar?" And then he forced me to just go buy it outright. So thanks, Joe.
The Collector's Quest podcast is controlling the market on Babar to the rescue for the Game Boy Advance. I just want to put this out here as a full disclosure, because Joe is researching the GBA rarities, and he said that, so Joe's an idiot. Sorry, Joe. He's only looking at US eBay. So he said, "Wow, there are no copies of Babar to the Rescue. This is the rarest game on GBA," or something stupid like that. But there was both a sealed copy and a really nice complete in box copy for $30 and $90 from Quebec, because this is almost definitely a French-Canadian exclusive. It has like a dual French, English. It has two manuals, actually. It has one French manual, one English manual.
Yes.
And Babar is a French character. So this is almost definitely a Quebec exclusive, which is why it's rare and why Joe couldn't find any on US eBay. So Joe is going to put out his guide. Is going to call Babar to the Rescue like this R9 game, like this super rare game, because it wasn't released in the region that he's searching in, which is like a little bit ridiculous.
It is, but also, the there aren't that many Babars. Those were the only two that were available.
The only two complete copies. But this is a rare game because it's a regional exclusive. But
and also GBA games are forget about how rare the card is. It's how rare it is complete in box or sealed. That's the only thing that really matters because everything is available as a cart.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
so we bought the Collector's Quest. I think VG Collectaholic bought the sealed copy. Yeah. And then you bought the complete copy. So
good luck finding Babar now, kids.
We're controlling the market, baby.
To the moon, Babar.
Babar to the moon.
Yeah. Anyways, I thought you would find that amusing. I wanted to wait to tell you that I did that, but the copy you bought is super nice. It is. And it was only $30. And after Joe said like there are 0 copies of this game available, I was so close to clicking buy it now on it, but I had to discipline myself and not just buy the shiny rare thing just because it's there. Because Johnny, at the end of the day, it is Babar to the rescue. So I had discipline and you did not. One of us might be going for a GBA set. It's not me. It's probably you. Or one of us might have like already too many GBA games. So I'm not like hard at GBA, but you know me. I've been slowly picking at this GBA set for so long. It's just like, well, I might as well just grab it. Especially since I already had an offer out and then Joe put it out there. I'm like, I already have the seller hasn't responded. I think I put 4 hours before Joe mentioned it. I was like, what the hell is happening right now? Who the hell is looking at
You're
Babar?
the jerk who's putting offers on a game that's like already, it's like super nice and is like very reasonably priced. And you're like, but what if I can get it for $20 instead of $30?
Yes.
And it's super rare.
They put a best offer on it. I'm trying to get the best deal. Look, I'm very efficient at spending money, okay? I'm very efficient. Super good at it. I buy a lot of dumb things. I have to get it for the lowest prices because I buy too much shit and I want too much stuff, Tyler. I'm an idiot. I'm not saying I'm the model. Don't follow me. Don't do what I do. Do the opposite. But this is the reason I am the way I am.
So you got one very rare GBA game in a sea of like really rare GBA games, but it is cool that it's a regional exclusive. So
it is.
It's cooler than most rare GBA games.
It's cool to us because we give a shit about things like this. It's not cool. It's a stupid thing.
Babar.
Yeah.
Babar. If you don't know, do people not know what Babar is? He's like a children's book character.
Yeah, it was a children's book. There was a cartoon. I think that was on like Nick Kids for a while, or maybe it was like an HBO cartoon. I think it was one of the weird HBO cartoons back in the day.
Oh, man.
But yeah, Babar is a little elephant.
Yeah. First appearance in 1931 French book, Histoire de Babar. But I believe we've talked about Babar, right? Because his second book had a big character change. This is After Dark stuff now.
No, I don't know if we have, but I'm excited to hear about it.
No, I don't know. I think like Babar was a lot more elephant-like in the first book, and then like second book. He marries his cousin Celeste? Oh my god, we can't talk about Babar. French people are fucking bullshit.
Just disparage a whole country full of people. All right.
French people know they're bullshit. Come on.
Oh, okay.
His mother is killed by a big game hunter.
Jesus, dark. What is this, a Disney game? Anyways, I did that. Hey, you want to hear about a game I played? Tell me if you've heard of it. Diablo?
Metroid Dread.
Diablo. I played Diablo 4.
How? Give up. No, don't give up.
No, I beat it.
Oh, you beat it.
No. I more than beat it, Tyler. I haven't quite 100%ed everything.
I don't think you can 100% Diablo.
Well,
do you have every item?
By that, I completed the whole season's journey, all of them, but I haven't finished every quest in every season's journey because I haven't killed everybody in PvP yet. Like, I don't do PvP, so I haven't killed 3 other players and become Hell's Chosen. But
I don't want no PvP crap in my season's journey, Johnny.
I know. I don't either. We beat Duriel. I killed the Echo of Lilith. I did all the things. I got my character to 100. I spec'd out gear. I did all the things.
All right, you gonna play Baldur's Gate now? Oh,
I hope so.
All right. I forgot. Is that not out yet?
No, it's out yet.
It's out yet. Okay, good. Yeah, just checking.
It's out. It's out. Just There's no physical copy, so it's hard for me to know if things exist. Because I don't.
Oh, there's no physical copy at all.
Yeah.
So this game I love, Brigand Oaxaca. The developer was making fun of Discord. They put out a thing like, buy Discord avatar enhancements and they're yours to keep. And he was making fun of like the modern world that we live in. And I said, hey, you made a game that's only for sale on like itch and GOG and Steam. Where's my physical copy? And he's like, yeah, I should probably put out a copy of my games on a USB stick. So I might have influenced a physical copy of one of my favorite games of the year coming out.
I hope you did.
And you know, I will like it even better if he just like literally like puts USB sticks in an envelope and like ships it out to people in his Discord. Like if it's like a homebrew release of a PC game, oh, it'd be so cool.
And that would be.
I'm gonna have the rare version of Brigand Oaxaca.
I want that to be it.
I will certainly let you guys know, Johnny.
All right. Okay, we did it.
That's it.
We did that. That's it. That's it.
Like
that's
a long
all
episode.
I played. It's
we're 3 hours again. Oh no.
Oh no, we did it again. All right, Tyler. They can find you where? The people, that is.
I'm on Discord. I'm default gen, default GEN. That's the place. Someone messaged me on eBay. I haven't got back to them yet. Someone they saved me as a saved seller on eBay, but I don't sell a lot. So one of my Warhammer figures popped up, and he like messaged me and just like saying hi. So you can message me on eBay, I guess, but Discord is potentially a better place to do that.
I don't know if you remember, but one time eBay tried to do like a social thing where they like wanted you to build like a profile and have like a little space, talk about yourself.
I don't remember that at all.
It was a long time ago. I know it was a long time ago because I was selling things on eBay. Anyways, you can find me on Instagram. I think I shall be returning for maybe a few Christmas-themed videos, like the Halloween ones, because Tyler doesn't want to do that as an episode, so I figure I might as well just punish you all with minute-long videos of dumb Christmas games.
Cool.
So,
thanks.
yeah, I'll be, yeah, you're welcome. You're going to watch them. You'll love them. And, yeah, you can find me on Discord. And I think that's it. Tyler, I do have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw like a few just like dumb questions at you. On your hot chocolate, are you a marshmallow person or a non-marshmallow person?
I'm a marshmallow person. Usually little mini marshmallows.
The mini ones? Doesn't have to be real ones? No snobbiness there? They can be Marbits?
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I'll take them if they're offered to me.
Okay.
It's not like I need to have my hot chocolate with marshmallows. Because they just kind of get in the way. They're not like great.
Yeah, they are just floaties in your hot chocolate.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
I think it's a thing where the idea is better than the execution.
Sure. Why is this coming up? Are you drinking hot chocolate right now?
No. I just figured I would ask a few holiday-ish questions just to ask.
Well, I just got some new hot chocolate from Amazon. So I get groceries from Amazon sometimes, Johnny. One, don't do that. Everything they sell is garbage, especially like their produce. I have the most flavorless raspberries. But I always get their clearance stuff because when they clearance stuff, they're like for real. They're like 25 cents, 20 cents. Like, we need to get this product out. This product sucks. And everything I have bought that has been that level of clearance has been absolutely god awful. And the latest thing I got was pumpkin spice hot chocolate mix. For virtually, it was basically free. Haven't had any yet. Seems like it would be terrible, but I'll let you know on that.
Okay, are you a whipped cream person on your hot chocolate or no whipped cream?
I don't think I've ever put whipped cream on hot chocolate.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's the same thing as marshmallows with less structure.
No. So it's nice, like when your hot chocolate is hot, right, and you put a little whipped cream, and then it kind of cools it, and you can kind of sip through the whipped cream to cool it.
That's in a physical sense. Are we in After Dark? In a physical sense, that doesn't seem like it would cool it any meaningful amount.
Just saying. Feels a little better.
That seems okay.
Depends how cold your whipped cream is too, I suppose. No, I just figured I would just ask a few questions. I just wanted to ask you a holiday-themed question before we said goodbye to the people on this Christmas episode.
Thanks, Johnny. Big into eggnog. Yeah. Give me some eggnog with some rum
in it.
Are
you into eggnog? I was going to ask about eggnog.
I'm into eggnog. I don't buy it myself, but definitely memories of Grandpa coming around with shots of eggnog for everyone, and that was the only alcohol I ever had as a kid was shots of eggnog.
Eggnog with alcohol. Then you want
Yeah.
it with or without?
Yeah, with alcohol. I didn't
Only the
understand
rum.
why it was the craziest thing I ever tasted for like 10 years of my young life, but thanks, Grandpa, for, he's an old Great Depression man who gives kids alcohol with a wink because that's what grandpas do, which people wouldn't like that these days.
No, they sure wouldn't. But whatever. He had a sweet coin collection probably and stamps and knew what
He used
to do.
to.
So, all right, that was it. I just wanted to throw a few holiday questions out.
All right.
All right,
Cool.
That's it.
Love you,
That's it
John.
for the episode. Love you, buddy. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope your holidays are merry and bright. Bye!